Hello and welcome to As the World Burns. I am your host. We will be discussing weekly, weird, strange, interesting, and just what's going on. Is the universe filled with civilization? Scientists seem to think so. Now, I guess, generally. What was going on with the drone situation? The White House says that the FAA approved them, but Cory Booker seems to think that they didn't. Why were there drones throughout the United States that everyone just kind of forgot about? They're still kind of out there. Next up, we'll be talking about the Lockheed Martin Navy destroyer HELIOS death ray. You heard that correct. It is a death ray. That's the only way to describe it. New capabilities of shooting down drones, and I guess any kind of aircraft or anything in the ocean. The ability to possibly incinerate it. We'll get into that in a little bit. Next after that, Anna Paulina to lead task force on declassification of JFK, Epstein, and UAP documents. I don't necessarily think anything is going to come much of the Epstein documents just because of those that are involved. But I'm excited to see what happens with JFK and UAP because that's been just going on for upwards of, 60 plus years. JFK and the UAP thing even longer. The last topic we will get into is actually related to the JFK declassification. Documents and people related to Operation 40. I'm going to look at anything I can find on Operation 40 in a short term. I'll be getting into Frank Sturgis, Marita Lorenz, anything related to LBJ and the oil company that he worked with and put in place in Vietnam as soon as JFK was assassinated. Or even before, I'm actually not sure about that. We'll get into it. First up, though, is the universe filled with civilizations? Science seemed to think so. Arguing it, I would say. This is an article coming from AboveTheNormNews.com. Just argues about alien civilizations. I mean, I personally think that the idea of alien civilizations are out there, but I think it's kind of scary to think that. There was an old quote, I forgot exactly how it went, but the idea that we're alone in the universe is terrifying, but the idea that we are not alone in the universe is equally, if not more terrifying. I don't think he said more, but that is pretty terrifying. Anyways, we will be getting into this article. As I have said, Above the Norm News, the universe is filled with alien civilization. Scientists seem to think so. Or scientists argue, actually, is the title of the article. For decades, scientists have debated whether intelligent life is an extraordinary cosmic accident or an inevitable outcome of evolution. A new study presents a bold answer. Alien civilizations are not just likely, they are unavoidable. Researchers argue that life is not a rare phenomenon, but a direct result of planetary evolution. If this is true, then the universe should be filled with intelligent species waiting to be found. For years, experts have relied on the hard steps model to explain why advanced life is rare. This theory suggests that life must overcome nearly impossible evolutionary leaps to reach intelligence. It argues that Earth was incredibly lucky, beating overwhelming odds to produce complex organisms and, eventually, a species capable of building civilizations. New research dismantles that argument completely. The findings show that intelligence is not a fluke. It is a predictable result of how planets change over time. Earth was never special. Its atmosphere, oceans, and land masses evolved in ways that allowed life to advance in steps. These changes were not miracles. They were part of a process that should be playing out on countless other planets. I think that's actually, to add in my own personal note, I think that's pretty accurate given how old the universe is, or from what we think how old it is. I mean, what, 8, 10 billion years? That's a long time. They were part of a process that should be playing out on countless other planets. Once the right conditions appeared, life moved forward. If this pattern holds true elsewhere, civilizations should be widespread across the cosmos. This research forces a radical shift in thinking. Scientists have spent decades asking whether extraterrestrial intelligence exists. That is no longer the right question. If evolution follows a set path based on planetary conditions, then intelligent life must be common. The real mystery is why we have not yet found it. For too long, evolution has been viewed as a struggle against improbable odds. Earth's history shows the opposite. Intelligence did not emerge against nature's resistance. It emerged because of it. This means that life, when given the right conditions, will always progress towards greater complexity. Intelligence is not an anomaly. It is an expected part of nature. This idea does not just change how scientists think about alien life. It demands that we accept a new reality. Intelligent civilizations should be everywhere. The next challenge is proving it. If intelligent life is common, there must be evidence showing why evolution follows a clear, predictable pattern. Earth's history provides that evidence. Major leaps in complexity did not happen by accident. They were given by planetary changes that created the right conditions. Life did not struggle through improbable barriers. It advanced the moment the environment allowed it. The most important factor is oxygen. Early Earth was a toxic wasteland, its atmosphere filled with gases that made it impossible for advanced life to exist. For nearly 1 billion years, the planet was dominated by simple microbes. Then everything changed. Certain bacteria evolved the ability to use sunlight to produce energy, releasing oxygen in the process. This triggered the Great Oxidation Event. For the first time, oxygen filled the atmosphere, setting off a chain reaction that led to a more complex life. Scientists once thought this was an unlikely breakthrough. New research suggests otherwise. Photosynthesis was an unavoidable outcome of microbial evolution. Once it appeared, oxygen buildup was inevitable. The process could not stop once it started. Bacteria kept producing oxygen and the planet's chemistry was transformed. The moment oxygen levels reached a certain threshold, evolution took the next step. The same process should be happening on other planets. If a world has liquid water and the right chemistry, the bacteria will eventually emerge. Once photosynthesis begins, oxygen production accelerates. At that point, advanced life is no longer a possibility. It is a certainty. Oxygen led to another massive shift. Cells became more advanced. Instead of simple bacteria, new cells emerged with the internal structures that allowed them to store genetic material and produce more energy. These eukaryotic cells had mitochondria, which allowed them to generate power far beyond what bacteria could manage. This change was not a rare event. It was an expected result of rising oxygen levels. Once oxygen made enough energy available, the leap to multicellular life was inevitable. Cells began working together, forming the first multicellular organisms. Larger, more complex structures became possible. Over time, life expanded into the oceans, onto land, and into every corner of the planet. This pattern repeats itself at every stage. The more oxygen that became available, the more complex life became. If this process happened here, there is no reason to believe it would not happen elsewhere. Planets with high oxygen levels should be filled with complex life. The most explosive claim is that intelligence follows the same rule. Scientists have long debated whether human intelligence is a rare accident or the logical endpoint of evolution. The evidence suggests it is the latter. Once life reaches a certain level of complexity, intelligence becomes an evolutionary advantage. The moment organisms began competing for resources, problem-solving became a survival tool. Species that could use tools, work together, and predict future events had the upper hand. Intelligence was not a freak occurrence. It was a necessary response to environmental pressures. Earth's history shows that intelligence was not an accident. It was part of an ongoing process. If this is true, then it must be happening on other planets as well. Life does not stop evolving once it reaches complexity. It keeps advancing. The same pressures that led to intelligence here should be reshaping it elsewhere. If intelligent civilizations are an expected result of planetary evolution, then the question is no longer whether they exist, it is why have we not found them yet? If intelligent life is widespread, then why has Earth not detected any signs of it? The Fermi paradox asks this very question. In a universe filled with planets, where are all the civilizations? This study suggests the problem is not that they do not exist, it is that we have been looking in the wrong way. For years, scientists have searched for extraterrestrial intelligence by listening for radio signals. The method assumes that other civilizations are using the same kind of technology as us. But what if they're not? Some alien societies may not use radio at all. Others could be so advanced their communication methods are far beyond anything humans can detect. Instead of listening for signals, researchers argue that scientists should be looking for physical evidence of alien civilizations. Just as human activity has altered Earth's environment, advanced species should leave behind similar markers. Massive space structures, artificial heat emissions, and unexplained changes in planetary atmospheres could all be signs of extraterrestrial intelligence. I would just like to add in also that, there's a lot of things that we could find out in space that could show us that there are signs of intelligence just all over the place. We could, there's something called a Dyson sphere, which, if I'm not mistaken, there's 3 types of civilizations, advanced civilizations. There's type 1, type 2, and type 3. Maybe I should look this part up, but I do believe type 2 is when a civilization is able to harness the power of the sun in order to utilize that for their energy, just for their entire planet. And if something is so massive that it encapsulates the sun and, excuse me, actually takes up goes possibly even around a sun or a star, whatever you want to call it, out there in the universe. That should be such a massive object in space that we should be able to detect it. Type 2 civilization, the Kardashev scale. It can use energy from its own star. A Type 2 civilization on the Kardashev scale is a society that can use the energy from its own star. This could be done by building a Dyson sphere or a Dyson swarm around the star. Control their solar system. They could move planets, change the path of their solar system, and influence star clusters. Avoid extinction. They could control the fate of their entire home planet and avoid threats like global warming and ice ages. Travel and communicate. They could travel and communicate interstellarly. Engineer stars. They could engineer stars and terraform planets. It's a Type 2 civilization. And from what I understand and from what I see right here, a Type 1 civilization that's close technological level of Earth. Type 3 civilization that can use the energy of an entire galaxy. I'm not necessarily privy to what utilizing the entire energy of an entire galaxy would look or sound like. That sounds crazy. Like a Dyson sphere goes around a sun or swarms a sun. How are you going to swarm an entire galaxy? That's back to that article. Instead of listening for signals, researchers argue, we already read all this. Changes in planetary atmospheres could all be signs, Dyson sphere, yada yada. There is also the possibility that civilizations do not last long. Intelligence may be inevitable, but survival is not. That's sad. If a species reaches the level of an advanced technology, it also gains the ability to destroy itself. War, environmental destruction, and resource depletion. That all sounds very, very familiar. Could wipe out civilizations before they reach the stars. Sad. The key to finding extraterrestrial life may not be looking for thriving civilizations. It may be searching for traces of those that no longer exist. The search for alien life is already changing. Scientists are now focusing on exoplanets, distant worlds orbiting other stars. The study predicts that planets with high oxygen levels, complex atmospheres, and biosignatures are the most likely to host life. Hypothetically speaking, what if, the aliens pulled an Elon and they decided to ditch Earth and go to, like, their, another planet, either in their known solar system or even outside of their solar system? Maybe they're still looking. They pulled, like, a Thor New Asgard thing until they find their new Earth. They're out there searching, and, who knows what'll happen. The search for alien life is already changing. Scientists are now focused on exoplanets, distant worlds orbiting other stars. The study predicts that planets with high oxygen levels, complex atmospheres, and biosignatures are the most likely to host life. Telescopes such as the James Webb Space Telescope are already scanning for these signs. Future missions will go even further, searching for direct evidence of technology beyond Earth. Time is running out for the belief that humanity is alone. The evidence points to a universe filled with life. The biggest challenge is recognizing it when we see it. The search for extraterrestrial intelligence has entered a new era. The question is no longer whether alien civilizations exist. It is how soon will we find them. That is the end. Source: Daniel B. Mills et al. Reassessment of the hard steps model for the evolution of intelligent life. I just want to know whose scientists argue this. I mean, I don't doubt that any scientists argue this, but this is one guy, Daniel B. Mills, a reassessment of the hard step. Is this one scientist writing about this? Maybe I should read the actual article or the actual study that this is from, but they didn't quote any scientists. They didn't quote anything in this article. It was a good article, but come on. It was just reassessing and regurgitating a lot of the stuff that we already know about the universe and alien life and yada, yada, yada. I personally believe that alien civilizations are out there. I don't think that we're alone. I think that in such a vast universe, I mean, I read a book from the 60s, I think it was, Isaac Asimov's The Universe. I think it was from 1964. And just in that era, the way that he described the vastness of the universe, I mean, I would assume that it was probably even lowballing it a little bit, but it was incomprehensible. It's almost a shame to think that we're the only ones in the universe. I mean, that sounds sad. Like you said, if that's true, that means just all of them went extinct. And that could be a possibility. And I personally think that might be a possibility. But that would be very, very disappointing, and that would be sad. Yeah. I thought it was pretty interesting, though. It was a little bit of a drone on about, like I said, everything we already know, but it was pretty interesting. Like I said, I think alien life exists. I think we're not alone. I think that's crazy to think that we're alone. I think even possibly that humans regularly contact aliens, or vice versa. Aliens regularly contact humans in a way of maybe abductions, or dare I say it, human to alien contact in a weird backroom, kind of weird, interesting way. I look over my shoulder when I say that. But I think alien life is out there. I think at the very least there's microbes on other planets. I mean, think about asteroids. Asteroids, even though for the most part, they burn up over the atmosphere, and there could be fungus on there. There could be seeds from another planet. There could be like a planet that just blew up because a meteorite hit it. Like just random, like little things that were just in the ground there. There could be tardigrades. I'm pretty sure I read that tardigrades can survive the vacuum of space. Why does that mean that, if tardigrades can survive the vacuum of space, and they're essentially they're like microbes, right? That's what a tardigrade is, right? I don't feel like looking this one up, but I'm pretty sure. If those things can go in that level of harshness of the environment, then, like the article said, life will persevere. I think so. I think life persevering is, by the very definition, what life is. I think humanity has only survived. I've had this conversation before. I think humanity has only survived because of its perseverance. I think life in general, I mean, that's, don't they say that's just all evolution is you're getting through the situations and imprinting onto your species the general vibe of, like, yes or no, stay away from this, stay away from that, natural instinct, don't, don't pet anything growling at you, natural things that are just, you don't have to be like you could be somebody that just emerged from a cave, a feral human, and you still understand fear. You understand curiosity. You have innate things that are never going to go away, that just make you you and make humanity humanity. And that's just, every species has that. But what I will say, the one thing that every species also specifically has is a perseverance. They'll never stop, and that's just by the very definition. Once they stop, that's it. And that's sad if you think about it, because the extinction of any species or any group of anything, even if it's a subspecies of a bird that looks identical to another species, it's like, hey, this is the West Texas canary, this is the East Texas canary. No more West Texas canaries, even though maybe they had like a little spot on them that made them different. That was unique. That was amazing. That was life. And, you have to appreciate the entirety of life. You have to appreciate everything. You have to appreciate everything that's come before, everything that will come again, and everything that we can hold on to, or even things that go away from us. I guess that's besides the point of this article, but that's kind of what I'm taking out of it, is that, animals could be considered aliens. You should appreciate them just like you could appreciate even something from outer space, because anything could be an alien, and anything could, be alien to you. All right. On to the next article. We're going to be looking into what Cory Booker has to say about the drone situation, which is kind of interesting. Let's see. FAA didn't approve New Jersey UAPs, Senator Booker says. I was told directly by officials that this is not the case. Well, it's making me listen to something, and I probably don't have the copyright to play it. So what I'll do, I'll just pause this real quick, listen to it, and describe what happens. It should be pretty short. It's only... I just listened to the Cory Booker explain that the FAA drones, he talked to officials apparently at DHS, and apparently they were not FAA approved, he says. And but he also stated he hadn't heard the White House announcement that the drones were FAA approved, so that is also worth noting. I've been following the drone situation since it kind of started. I got really into looking at UFO news and just strange news just all around just the country and what was going on at the time, right at that time. And that was one of the things that I was following, and I thought was incredibly interesting, because it was borderline an invasion. I dare I say an invasion, because if it was the government, if it was the United States government and they were FAA approved, then it was not an invasion. If it was some sort of new technology being tested, or like I thought it was, the Iron Dome at one point. I was watching a video from a podcaster called Mindseed TV. And he suggested at one point that the drones, and that a theory going around was that they were related to Trump's multiple proposal and talking about the Iron Dome being around the United States. And I'll be honest with you, I saw videos of the Iron Dome in action, and I was like, in my head, I know they're supposed to be rockets or yada yada, but I thought that they looked incredibly like UAPs, even like orbs, like what people talk about when they talk about seeing like these drones. I remember seeing a video of, and this could have been fake. You never know with AI now. There's a lot of videos that could be fake, and you don't really know what you're looking at. So you kind of have to. It was always like this because someone said recently that conspiracy theories are like spoiler alerts to us old heads, and I thought that was a very interesting thing because I remember as a kid, and I'm not really that old. I mean, I'm not gonna say how old I am, but I'm not really that old. And I remember being a kid and hearing a lot of conspiracy theories that you would say were at the time conspiracies, but really what it was is it was just history that people didn't want to talk about, or things even that just people didn't want to talk about. It wasn't even necessarily history. It's just like things that were just happening that people were just like, oh, let's just, skip over that. Drone strikes, banks controlling everything, or not controlling everything, but like, having a monetary system that we rely on in our everyday life. That right there, if that fails, if we get a financial crisis and the banks fail, then it's all topsy-turvy. We're all screwed. And I think that's an interesting, what do they call that, a posset, or an interesting situation, I guess, we're all in. And if you think about it, we're all just kind of swimming, and you really just can't stop. You just got to keep swimming, and there's really no island, but there's hope. And that's really, that's life, right? But yeah, we rely on everything to just kind of facilitate our everyday life, and you're rare to find somebody that is that interested in self-sustainability that they'll spend their entire life completely going off the grid. I mean, people have done that. There was that kid, I think I think it was Alaska. He went up there, and they made a movie, Into the Wild, about it. Great movie, but that kid died. And a lot of people just, if you want to just go off the grid, you die. So sometimes you have to be a player in society. You have to deal with the repercussions of living in this world, and the repercussions of dealing with everybody else. And there's some people that you could argue almost don't even have to deal with those repercussions. But yeah, the drones. Anyways, there's a lot of things the government doesn't tell us. There's a lot of things that we could potentially avoid, or we could potentially deal with. The drones is an interesting situation because there's no control over it, whether it is the government or it's not the government. It's completely out of our control as people. I mean, everybody in New Jersey that experienced this phenomenon would argue that they were, either curious or scared, or both, or somewhere in between. I think that's been evident from all the videos, and that's been everything that's been said. It's just been a strange thing to have to live through, and it's weird to not get any answers besides a complete flip on what the narrative was before of, oh, no, we don't know what they are, and no idea, not FAA approved even, and now to they were FAA approved, and they're nothing. They're, nothing to worry about, nothing to see here, everybody. That's all right. I mean, I'm fine with, sweeping things like that, like big, quote unquote conspiracies. I wouldn't call that a conspiracy. I would just call that like just I guess it is a conspiracy, but it's just something they're not telling us. It's not like unexplained or strange. I mean, it is, but the simplest explanation is that it probably was the government. It was probably that, or a government contract, or some sort of new civilian tech, maybe potentially. I read this that it could have been potentially civilian tech that they were trying to get a Manhattan to New Jersey, like an airline, so to speak, but not really. Like more like a you can like a bus line, like an air bus line. I guess that's what an airline is. It's a bus in the sky. But this is more like a drone helicopter that just ships a bus full of people to, like, if you're in Boston, maybe go to New York City. You're in you're in New York, go to Newark. That's close, but you get the idea. There's possibilities, and it's like Futurama almost. Eventually, we start at shipping people around in tiny little air drones, and eventually we have like flying cars, like in Back to the Future, and then eventually we have ships that we can traverse the stars even, and control the galaxy. Evidently, if we're a Type 3 civilization. Again, no idea how that's possible. How can you control an entire galaxy? It's like I've made a lot of Marvel references, but that's like utilizing all 6 Infinity Stones. Like, where can you go from there? Essentially, humanity is a god at that point. Like, what does it mean to control a galaxy? I still don't understand that. I'm probably gonna look into that again. That's strange. But the drones are strange too. And Iron Dome, I was saying earlier. I thought that all of them looked like a lot of the videos of the Iron Dome that I've seen, but maybe even just a more progress version of it. And with the fact that a lot of these orbs or UAPs or drones were being reported not just in New Jersey, but like all over the United States, for instance, in each coastline, as just, an interesting idea. A lot of the places that I actually heard the drones be were just kind of around our borders, if you think about it. And I think that's interesting because if that is an Iron Dome system, that is it's just testing out our capability of essentially where we could be attacked. That it's a scary idea, but that's also an interesting idea. I think it brings up a lot of concepts and scary thoughts about, like, say, a surveillance state. But what can you do? Do you want to sacrifice liberty for security or security for liberty? I think Benjamin Franklin had a famous quote that related to that, but I would not like to say it right now because it might bury the point I'm trying to make. But I guess that's the idea. Do we want these drones in our sky so that if anything did happen, we could prevent it from really happening, if that makes sense? Maybe we do. I mean, I would settle for like offshore, boats and stuff like that. But, I guess at that point, if something, were here, it's kind of hard to, deal with that. But a lot of interesting things happening lately. The drone UAP situation over the last few months, there's never... I read somewhere that we were in a golden age right now of UFO and UAP sightings. Now, that's cool. That's awesome. But what that also tells me is that they're not all... if there are quote NHI, like they say, non-human intelligence or aliens, as the classic name for them is extraterrestrial, what have you. If there are extraterrestrials up there, I think they're also being buried by a lot of drones that are human drones. Maybe not our drones, as in the United States. They could be from another country. They could even be a friendly country. They could be an ally. They could be an aggressive country. There's no knowing what it is. But I think if there are UAPs and there are UFOs out there, which I've seen some pretty incredible videos over the past few months, that to me is it's hard to dispute the fact that we are living in an interesting age for that. I mean, you also have to think about AI, but again, we still live in an interesting time given everything that's happening with aerial phenomenon. A lot of drones, UAPs, a lot of that stuff, but like I said, if anything is happening, if there are aliens out there that are showing up, I think this so-called golden age is happening, but I think also a lot of the things that people are spotting are probably government drones. I think even a lot of the ones that we see that look like they are and could be aliens could even be humanity. I mean, there's the idea that Roswell, New Mexico, we found a crashed UFO and we shipped it off to Area 51, right, Groom Lake or whatever, and that's fascinated me my entire life. The government like officially acknowledges it in like what 2011, 2012. My entire life I've heard about that, and it's always been fascinating to me. Like even before it was, a thing, like before it was like, yeah, this exists, it was always a thing. It was always fascinating. It was a legend. It was like unexplained. It was cool. It's Area 51. There's movies about it. There's so many cartoons, TV shows like Venom. The newest Venom movie had them go to Area 51, and why not? Because Venom's an alien. Why not go to Area 51? They were closing it down, and they say that a lot of the entertainment industry predicts a lot of things that happen soon after. I mean, I hope Area 51 doesn't close down, but I think that's an interesting thought to what I was saying is that if we did pick up all this alien technology and we did bring it to Area 51 and we spent all this time and resources reverse engineering or trying to make our shitty so our shitty versions of the UFOs what they would be. I think that if we did all that, at this point, Area 51 could close soon because it's been so long that we've worked on these things that I think, probably worked out some of the kinks or a lot of the kinks. But what's interesting is if Area 51 does close down, that tells me that the public is probably going to find out about either UFOs or aliens soon or both. And it could be one or the other, and it could be both. It could be that all these UFOs are aliens and we're just looking up in the sky, not realizing we're seeing so many different things that are just right in front of us, popping in and out of our existence and our life. And, maybe we're thinking in our heads like, oh, that's an alien. Or maybe we're just thinking in our heads like, oh, that's something, Could be anything. But I think if Area 51 does close down soon, I think what is going to happen is that the government is going to actually talk about and really just completely force the narrative of UAPs, even if what they are is government drones or government tested like flyers, like we've somehow harnessed this 0 point energy from these or this not zero yeah, I guess 0 point energy from these spaceships, or we've harvested the technology or the elements in order to properly create like the anti-gravity effect, like, or prevent like people inside of the spaceships from getting like their insides mushed from the intense speeds. Like I guess you'd have to have some kind of gyroscopic spaceship. It would have to like the middle would always constantly have to stay centered, but the outer area would have to be constantly moving. Fascinating stuff. Gyroscopic technology in spaceships, and the potential idea that one day soon we will know what these UAPs are. And on to the next thing that I wanted to discuss. I guess I really didn't talk too much about the drones. I do have a lot to say about the drones, clearly. And I start to run in circles a lot with the drones because I want to believe that they're aliens and that they're all here. But at the same time, I think if aliens are here, they're not messing with us. They're just here. They're just flying around. But there's not many of them, I don't think. I don't think there would be, because if we as humanity were able to conquer the universe and go out and do all those things that, a type 3 civilization or a type 2 civilization would be able to accomplish, then we'd still be a species bound by our numbers. We wouldn't be everywhere all at once. And, perhaps you're thinking like, oh, we'd conquer everything. We'd spread out everywhere. It'd be like something like the Alien franchise, where humanity has just kind of just gone on every planet and just, we got mining colonies. And you know what? There probably will be that if humanity survives to that point. But I think if aliens are as inquisitive and as trying to understand us as we think they are, and not as just, they're probably nihilistic, but they're probably not nihilistic in the sense that they want our destruction. They're probably peaceful, or else why would we still be here? At the very least, we have an understanding with them, and they have an understanding with us, if aliens exist and have been here, yada yada. And Roswell, going back to everything that happened in Roswell, supposedly there were a number of government contractors, like one that I may or may not mention coming up, that supposedly gotten their hands on all this government technology, and they wanted to, just be like, here, or the government was like, here, take all this and mess around with it. Figure out how this UFO works. Get your best guys on it and reverse engineer it. And then years later, supposedly we have all these like stealth like jets and all these crazy things that are, just possible remnants of that technology. I think that's fascinating. So next on the radar, next that we're going to be talking about, I guess radar is kind of a pun, because this next news article is actually from the Navy Times. It is about Lockheed Martin's new Navy laser. Now, let me just go through real quick. This is, like I said, Navy Times. U.S. Navy hits drone with HELIOS laser in successful tests by Riley Cedar with a C. So, let's find out what's up with the Navy drone. Now, for I guess a quick prologue and a quick pre-context for my knowledge, I've always heard that a lot of these, government contractors had access to alien technology, and I think that's cool. I think that's interesting. I think if that's the case, then, let them have it. Let them mess around with it. Do whatever they want with it. As long as it doesn't hurt us, as long as we're doing the right thing, I guess, with it, like Google's old saying, don't be evil, or whatever they said before. And then they changed it, so, what does that tell you, I guess? But, you can't see it because this is all going to be going out as a just an audio recording. I'm probably going to be putting a fire background because that's what I usually do. It is my own little personal touch, because I'd like this to be like a fireside conversation. I have a candle over here. I want to talk to you, and I want this to just, I want this to be chill. So, there's a picture of this gigantic laser beam, and there's no other way to describe it. And I guess this is a real picture from the Preble fires its Helios system during weapons testing. And now, you can't see this, but maybe I'll link it in the description or something. I should, now that I've said that. But it's literally looks like, it's a dumb thing to say, but like, if you've ever seen the original poster for Star Wars, the first one, where Luke has the lightsaber straight up and it's like emanating a glow and then shooting straight up. It's like that, but if it was turned sideways, and the handle piece, if it was just a gigantic warship, like an USS destroyer is just shooting this giant laser out of it. It's something out of Star Wars. It's literally crazy. We have this technology. It's amazing. It's mind blowing. I've only ever not dreamed of this, but like I've only ever thought about this in like, coming away from movies like, oh yeah, we got lasers. Got little, lasers we can shoot around. No, we have lasers. We have genuinely big lasers that can shoot off of destroyers and annihilate supposedly drones and other things. I mean, I guess it melts them. It doesn't even like it doesn't I guess it blows them up if you hit like some sort of fuel source or I would imagine like some kind of battery or something. It's gonna blow up, right? That would be how it works. But this thing's literally gonna melt things out of the sky. Like how? That's crazy. This makes me think of I mentioned, like I said, it's Star Wars. This is like what Reagan said in the 80s when he said that we're going to have these laser weapons on satellites that are going to shoot asteroids and defend Earth. That was called the Star Wars project. From what I remember, like that's a real thing that he said, and now we don't have it in satellite form, but we have it on our waters. And if we were to have it in satellite forms, I guarantee you we'd have it on Earth in forms like on a destroyer. I bet you we would have had that a long time ago if we have a laser in space. It's an insanely interesting thing. It's the next step in technology. It's the next step in war. And, say what you want about that. You could consider that a net negative. You could consider that a positive, depending on your perspective. I'd like to think that this is a positive in the sense that we have the technology. It's like nuclear energy. Once you have that kind of technology, yeah, you can use it as weapons, but there's so many possibilities. There's so many things that we can probably do with a gigantic laser. Like I said earlier about Ronald Reagan saying about zapping the asteroids out into space. Why can't we do that? That would be amazing. That would be literally life-saving. That would be next level. And we wouldn't have to send Bruce Willis into space and plant, a nuclear bomb in the asteroid. We can instead just shoot it and be done. Be done with this situation. Anyways, interesting stuff. I think the Helios laser is gonna play out pretty crazy. I'm still gonna read this article, but I would just like to mention one other thing in regards to the Star Wars project and the space satellite laser. This is in RoboCop, I think, 2. There's a series of newscasts that are just hilarious. They're satires on humanity and generally just everything happening. And there's like commercials. There's one where there's a guy trying to rob a car and it zaps him and kills him. And it's like, that's like a car defense is to zap and kill people. It's like just crazy technology like that. And there's just a random news segment just out of nowhere. Random news segment. I could just like dropped out of nowhere. I think it was a South American country got hit with a satellite space laser, and there were just massive amounts of people that just died. And they're just like, yep, that happened. All right. Anyways, RoboCop today, and it's like, and that whole series was also like a commentary and a satire on humanity as a whole, and our next step in technology and the things that we're going to oppress ourselves with when it comes to technology. And lo and behold, we have kind of done that. But it's just an interesting thought that if there's a laser in outer space and we want to shoot an asteroid, it's like, that's great. That'll save humanity. That'll cause us to persevere, so to speak. That's ingenuity. That's human ingenuity. That's a lot riding on that, you know? But what if we did have like a malfunction, or hackers got into the space laser and they were like, "Hey, we're just gonna launch this thing off at a terrible direction, and something disastrous happens." It could happen. It could very well happen. There's disasters all over the place with new technology all the time. I was watching a video recently, and there in Rhode Island there was this nuclear incident where just some chemicals got mixed up that shouldn't have been mixed up, and then boom, something happened that it wasn't a good thing, and it led to the death of somebody. It led to our understanding of radiation poisoning, furthering our understanding of it. But that's, at what cost? One person's death, even one person, should not, further the idea of knowledge. If it happens, it happens. But, nobody's life is worth a better understanding of anything. It's, life's precious. Anyways, this will be the article that is from the Navy Times, officially written about this, Navy destroyer laser. The U.S. Navy successfully tested its high-energy laser with integrated optical dazzler and surveillance, or HELIOS system, on one of its warships in fiscal 2024, according to a recently released report. The Arleigh Burke-class destroyer Preble fired its HELIOS system to zap an aerial drone during a weapons testing exercise in 2024. According to an Office of the Director Operational Test and Evaluation report published in January, the report, which did not provide a date or time the laser's development, included a black and white photo showing a streak of white light beaming out from the vessel into the sky. I wonder if the reason why it was black and white is because this is probably I'm probably wondering for nothing because this is probably it, but if they did take like a color photo, would it have just been too bright to like fully like comprehend? Like, would it have just like wiped out the film, I guess, like been just too bright for it, just like lens flare? I would imagine that's probably why they did a black and white. I don't know. The Center for Countermeasures, a program developed in 1972 to gauge the Defense Department's ability to combat emerging technological threats, conducted 32 tests in fiscal year 2024, which included the, quote, development and evaluation of directed energy weapons, end quote. According to the report, this test conducted on the Preble was run to verify and validate the functionality, performance, and capability of the HELIOS system, the report said. It's unclear where the test took place. The Preble departed Naval Base San Diego, California in September 2024 and arrived in Yokosuka, Japan on October 12, 2024. Lockheed Martin delivered the 60-plus kilowatt laser to the Navy in August 2022, when it became the first tactical laser system to be installed in existing ships. That's kind of cool. Unmanned warfare, especially in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden, where Navy ships have intercepted drones and missiles launched by Iran-backed Houthi rebels since fall 2023, has underscored the need to accelerate the technology's deployment for the Navy, the Military Times previously reported. In 2024, Vice Admiral Brendan McClane, acknowledging the Navy did not have a laser it could field, noted a directed energy weapon would assist the U.S. warships against Houthi combatants. The integration of lasers on Navy vessels would allow crews to conserve munitions, Military Times previously reported. The Defense Department has spent $1 billion annually to develop high-energy lasers and high-powered microwaves, but without tangible results that Navy leadership craves, according to the same report. The service has faced challenges in developing and implementing the directed energy weapons for a myriad of reasons, including difficulty determining laser use in the field and concerns the systems won't meet operational needs. Overall tech development, finding a power source aboard ships, and potential obstacles presented by the environment like fog and wind have also proved challenging. Currently, the Navy has 8 optical dazzling interdictor or Odin laser dazzlers which disrupt enemy sensors integrated into Arleigh Burke-class destroyers. According to the Congressional Research Service's December 2024 report on Navy lasers, there is also a 150 kilowatt laser weapon system demonstrator, or LWSD, installed on a San Antonio-class amphibious transport ship. Interesting. And again, that was by Riley Cedar. And Riley Cedar is a reporter at the Military Times where he covers breaking news, criminal justice investigations, and cyber. He previously worked as an investigative practicum student at the Washington Post, where he contributed to the Abused by the Badge investigation. Interesting guy, Riley. Thank you for the report. That was pretty interesting. I would like to say I think this is a positive for humanity, even though it sounds like a negative. It's it's new technology, and they're putting it on warships, sure, but what's to stop them from using something else with this, putting them on something more innocuous or positive. I don't know. It's as the world burns. We'll see what happens. And hopefully the world doesn't burn from lasers. That is a conspiracy, though, that the fires were lasers. Just throwing that out there. A true story. Michael Crichton's original book, Jurassic Park, very great movie. Great book, I would say, too. Michael Crichton is a great author. A lot of great things. But what's interesting is towards the end of the series, or like later on, they start getting into genetically engineered dinosaurs. Cool. We're doing that in the movies now. Whatever. But they started putting lasers on the dinosaurs. So, maybe that's the next step of war. Dinosaur lasers. Who knows? That would certainly be fun. It would be crazy seeing velociraptors going out there taking out like just doing their thing. And then other velociraptors from like other sides come and just fight, and then you just have velociraptors, and that's it. Eventually T-Rex comes out, takes everybody out, and then he reigns king. I don't know. Something to think about, I guess. One day we could have cloning, and we could potentially have dinosaur lasers. What a dumb idea. So, that was the HELIOS Laser. Very fascinating, very interesting. I think that it was... I pretty much said my piece about the HELIOS Laser, but, who knows? Who knows what'll happen with it? Next on the list, we have Anna Paulina Luna to lead task force on declassification of JFK assassination records, Epstein client list. Luna will lead the task force on the declassification of federal secrets. Interesting. Okay. So this is foxnews.com. Great. Love it already. This is apparently I guess a Fox News exclusive, according to them. I'm just going to read it out because it's interesting. Representative Anna Paulina Luna of Florida will lead a new task force, actually, focused on the declassification of federal secrets, including records related to the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, Senator Robert F. Kennedy, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and other documents in the public interest, Fox News Digital has learned. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer of Kentucky appointed Luna to the chair task force on the declassification of federal secrets. Luna is expected to focus on examining the declassification of materials in the public interest, including the client list of Jeffrey Epstein. That would be interesting. If we got that, the client list, if we got the client list, that would be fascinating. That would be amazing. I doubt that of all things that are listed here are going to happen, to be honest. If the Epstein thing, if we find anything out from the Epstein thing, I will be very surprised, and I will be pleasantly surprised. I will be happy, but I don't think anything's going to come of it. I don't think so. There's just too many players involved in the situation that are involved in our everyday life, and if it does come out, I think it will be a redacted list, and I think that it'll focus more so on certain people than, others, so to speak. I think that certain people will get a pass, and then other people will not be mentioned or redacted. For privacy issues, you gotta have the privacy. Sources told Fox News Digital that Comer and Luna sent letters to the Department of Energy, and the CIA for documents relating to the origins of COVID-19. The National Security Agency and CIA for records relating to JFK, MLK, and RFK assassinations. Interesting. The Department of Defense and the CIA for 9/11 files. Okay. That's interesting. And to the Justice Department for documents relating to Jeffrey Epstein. I want to see the Justice Department. Yeah, does that have the FBI files? Like what the FBI seized? That's what I want to know, is what the FBI seized. But who am I to stunt this investigation or criticize any of this? Because, this is what the people want. I mean, this is what we want, but I don't know if this is how we want it. I think we just want everything just out there. But I don't think that's how we're going to get it. I think we might get that with JFK, but with Epstein, I don't know about that. That's a tall order for the current administration. I mean, Trump, he should have, investigated it himself. He lived 5 minutes from the guy, or Mar-a-Lago was 5 minutes from him. He should have figured something out there. Anyways, faith in him, I guess, right? Do the right thing. The creation of the task force comes after President Donald Trump signed an executive order telling the Director of National Intelligence and other appropriate officials to present a plan for the full and complete release of all JFK assassination records within 15 days. He also ordered that officials immediately review the records relating to RFK, MLK assassinations and present a plan for their full and complete release within 45 days. For too long, the federal government has kept information of public interest classified, and the American people are demanding greater transparency. This secrecy has sowed distrust in our institutions, Comer told Fox News Digital, noting that the task force will build on the Trump administration's efforts to declassify records of national importance and ensure Americans get the answers they deserve. Yeah, let's hope, right? Let's hope we get some kind of answer, because it seems like a lot of people were involved. Representative Luna is committed to shining a light on the truth and ending the era of secrecy, Comer said. It's time to let the sunlight in and finally provide answers to the American public. Answers the American public has long demanded. Luna told Fox News Digital that the federal government has been hiding information from Americans for decades. We've spent years seeking information. A lot of this is in quotes. I'm just going to read it because I just don't want to say end quote, unquote. It's a lot of it's quotes. We have spent years seeking information on the assassinations of President Kennedy, Senator Kennedy, Reverend King, and the other government secrets without success, Luna told Fox News Digital. It is time to give Americans the answer they deserve, which is why I am honored to lead this bipartisan task force that seeks truth and transparency. Luna told Fox News Digital that the task force will also investigate UAPs, USOs, the Epstein client list, COVID-19 origins, and the 9/11 files. That's going to be all very interesting. That was me saying that, not a quote. We will work alongside President Trump and his cabinet members to deliver the truth to the American people, she said. From this moment forward, we will restore trust through transparency. Fascinating. I think by now people know my position on this whole thing. I think JFK, would love to know what's going on there. That would be fascinating. That would be cool to get like an idea to know. I think that's the most likely of those ones that we're going to find out. I mean, MLK and Robert F. Kennedy, that also, I mean, that tracks. If the government had anything to do with them, we might find that out. That would be interesting. And I think most likely to figure out out of any of those, like what we're going to know is because of RFK Jr. being in power. I mean, maybe this is a pipe dream, but I would assume that he's going to want the American public to really know what happened. And I wonder if he even knows what happened at this point. I mean, maybe he has theories, but does he actually know what happened? I would love to know that. That would be fascinating. I would love to know if when it's released, like, did he know the whole time, or is he finding out with everybody else what happened? Because that would be an interesting thing to, like, that would, to use a weird word, I guess, that would be like a spiritual moment for him. And I think it would be cathartic, too. I guess would be the proper word. There would be definitely a catharsis for him. I think it would be good to know. I think it might make him angry if he finds out that it was the government, and that might, lead to him having even more interesting ideas for how things should lead, and even, go and taking the reins with, Trump. And, hey, I personally don't mind RFK Jr. I think he's all right. I might disagree with some of the things he says. I might disagree with some of the things he does. But I probably agreed with him the most out of anybody that ran in 2024. I think that he was an interesting character, and he's funny to hear talk. He's got a real grizzled voice, and and that is because of a medical issue. So I should state that it's not funny that he has that, but it's just like, I think he's a character, and I appreciate everything about people that are characters. I appreciate characters in the sense that I appreciate if they talk an interesting way or if they act an interesting way. And I think RFK Jr. does all of those things. Even if you took away the voice, he would still talk in an interesting way. And I can appreciate that as a lover of fascinating people. And RFK Jr. is a fascinating person. Anyways, so the last topic I wanted to get to, and I mean, this has kind of been longer than I anticipated, but I'm kind of enjoying it, and I don't mind just, perusing around these subjects if anybody wants to actually listen. I'm going to put this up on YouTube. I'm going to try to see if anybody is interested in just listening to what I have to say about any of this. And if you don't, that's fine. But if you do, tune in and listen. The next thing I'm going to be talking about is pretty much related to what I was talking about just now. It is Operation 40. I'm trying to find there it is, Operation 40. It's an interesting little thing. I'm not going to just talk about, I guess I should probably go to I'm going to be going through the Wikipedias of all these different, you could say characters again. And these people that were related to this Operation 40. It's an interesting thing, and I don't know. Want to just look into it a little bit. So this is from Wikipedia. Like I said, I'm probably just going to check out Wikipedia because they got a lot of interesting stuff on Operation 40 that I can just kind of go through and just connect the dots and keep the key players, and so you understand what's happening, I guess. So, Operation 40 was the code name for a top-secret Central Intelligence Agency-sponsored counterintelligence and counterinsurgency group, composed of CIA officers and anti-Castro Cuban exiles. That's going to be important. The group was established in 1960 to target the new communist regime in Cuba. Yeah, get those commies. And it participated in the planning and execution of the Bay of Pigs invasion. Failure. If the invasion had proved successful, the group would have aided in the forming a right-wing government while purging Castro supporters and other left dissidents. In the 1960s, Operation 40 continued to function unofficially in Florida as a counterintelligence unit. It was disbanded in the early 1970s due to allegations that Operation 40 personnel were involved in cocaine and heroin smuggling. Again, interesting to keep of note later. Here are a list of the commanders of Operation 40. Allen Dulles, director of the CIA. If I'm not mistaken, the very first director of the CIA. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure he was. Vice President of the United States, Richard Nixon. At the time, Vice President of the United States, Richard Nixon. Chief of Naval Operations, Arleigh Burke. National Security Advisor, Gordon Gray. I should probably put these guys aside because they're probably going to be important later. And Livingston T. Merchant. That sounds like a fake name, but if you got a Wikipedia page, you're a real person. Livingston T. Merchant. Again, that's interesting. Interesting name there. On the 11th of December 1959, Colonel J.C. King, head of the CIA's Western Hemisphere Division, sent a confidential memorandum to CIA Director Allen W. Dulles. King argued that the recent Cuban evolution there now existed a far-left dictatorship, which, if permitted to stand, will encourage similar actions against U.S. holdings in other American countries. One of King's four recommendations was thorough consideration to be given to the elimination of Fidel Castro. None of those close of Fidel, such as his brother Raul or his companion Che Guevara, have the same mesmeric appeal to the masses. I mean, a lot of people wore Che Guevara's shirt, so he must have a slight appeal to the masses. I mean, he was like a militant guy or whatever, but still. Many informed people believe that the disappearance of Fidel would greatly accelerate the fall of the present government. I probably should have just finished that before I commented, but yeah. Dulles forwarded King's memo to the National Security Council, which approved the formation of a working group to devise alternative solutions to the Cuban problem. That's a quote. Operation 40 was subsequently created under the leadership of Jose Sanjuanes Perdomo. I hope I didn't butcher your name, Jose. It was given that name because originally there were 40 agents involved, though it later expanded to more than 70. Oh, okay. That makes sense. At a White House meeting on the 17th of March 1960, a plan entitled A Program of Covert Action Against Castro Regime was presented to President Dwight Eisenhower. Among the meeting's attendees, fun fact about Dwight Eisenhower, may or may not be true, but just real quick, drop this bomb on you. Supposedly he had he wanted to know what was going on in Area 51 and they wouldn't tell him. Another fun fact that may or may not even be more untrue or true, it's even crazier, is that supposedly aliens had a meeting with Eisenhower where they discussed like a peace deal between the human race and aliens, and yeah. Interesting stuff. So, yeah. I guess, Eisenhower also was the one who warned us, even though he was, I think he was a general in the military in World War II, if I'm not mistaken. He also warned us in his outgoing speech against the military-industrial complex, which, you know, is a real thing. And we're, to this day, still dealing with the repercussions of not only that, but, we should have heeded his warning. Even just, maybe he knew what was happening behind the scenes because of all this. That's why he said that. But, we should have heeded his warning. All right. Dwight Eisenhower. Among the meeting's attendees were Vice President Richard Nixon. Great guy. Great guy. Not at all weird. Not at all creepy. Not at all tricky. Admiral Arleigh Burke. Secretary of State Christian Herter. Cool name, I guess. CIA Director Dulles. And CIA Deputy Director for Plans Richard Bissell and J.C. King. The plan called for a broad range of intelligence, political, paramilitary, covert action program and stressed the need for its deniability. Although not mentioned in the program, Operation 40 was tasked with sabotaging Cuban infrastructure as well as assassinating Cuban leaders. Once Castro was overthrown, Operation 40 would have formed the nucleus of a Cuban CIA to purge any remaining Castro supporters along with other leftist elements. Those damn leftists. Operations in Operation 40 consisted of Cuban exiles, many of whom had served in the Bureau for the Repression of Communist Activities. Also say that 5 times fast. Under Fulgencio Batista, joined by a small number of American CIA agents, in addition to its members focused on setting up a new Cuban government. Operation 40 also had an assassination unit. One Operation 40 participant, Watergate burglar Frank Sturgis, remember that name, he's going to come up later, told author Michael Canfield in a 1975 interview, "The assassination section, which I was a part of, would upon orders naturally assassinate either members of the military or the political parties of the foreign country that you were going to infiltrate, and if necessary, some of your own members who were suspected of being foreign agents." That's wild. That's wild to say. That's... To tell the author that's cool, but wild. Cool in a crazy way. Oh, cool. No, that's like, whoa. Heavy. Anyways, although Operation 40 mainly operated in Cuba, it conducted similar activities in other Latin American countries. The black ops perpetrated by Operation 40 were intent on destabilizing the Cuban Revolutionary Government. For example, on the 4th of March 1960, a ship flying a Belgian flag exploded in Havana Bay. It was loaded with arms and ammunition destined for the defense of the revolution. The act was a CIA operation carried out by various saboteurs who boarded the ship in its port of origin and placed explosives, which were detonated by a device which responded to the change in pressure when the cargo was being unloaded. 75 persons were killed and more than 200 injured. While these sabotage operations were occurring in 1960, another CIA-sponsored group of Cuban exiles known as Brigade 2506 was being equipped and trained in Guatemala for an upcoming invasion of Cuba. Operation 40 was eventually attached to the invasion. Prior to the invasion, Operation 40 reportedly purged Brigade 2506 under the orders of Manuel Artime and E. Howard Hunt of any liberal, left, or otherwise anti-Baptist members. Once Brigade 2506 conquered Cuban towns and villages, Operation 40 would have been charged with cleansing those areas of hardcore Federalistas, along with the supporters of Cuban exile Manuel Rey Rivera. Afterwards, the group would help establish a new right-wing government, possibly under Artime. On the 17th of April, 1961, Operation 40 landed at the Bay of Pigs via the CIA-chartered freighter Atlantico. One member, Vicente Leon, was killed in action with the rest taken prisoner. Operation 40 survivors were trained to keep their group a secret. However, Jose Raul Verona Gonzalez, the intelligence officer in Brigade 2506, was captured, interrogated, and revealed Operation 40's existence to Cuban officials. After the invasion, the group ceased its operations in foreign countries. During the mid to late 60s, Operation 40 unofficially served as counterintelligence unit primarily active in Florida and still under Jose Sanjuan's leadership. The group largely spied on Cuban exiles and any Americans who associated with them. in the hopes of rooting out potential spies working for the Cuban government. However, no such spies were found, regardless of extensive files on prominent Cuban exiles were gathered by Operation 40. Operation 40's activities began winding down as a result of a small plane crash in Southern California in the late 1960s. The plane was allegedly piloted by one of Jose Sanjuan's men. In the wreckage, the police found several kilograms of cocaine and heroin. Soon after the crash, the group was further induced, and another Cuban in the group, accused by U.S. federal authorities of being a cocaine smuggler, was killed in a gun battle with Miami police. By 1970, the Operation 40 team had dwindled to only a few men who mainly worked on updating existing files. Sanjuanes retired from the CIA in 1972, with Operation 40 being disbanded by the CIA around that time. So that was generally just what Operation 40 kind of is. I would say next we should read about one of the people that was mentioned in that. And I've got a list of people that I want to look into. And the next person I'd like to talk about, he's kind of... He's part of the reason why I wanted to do this whole thing, actually, if I'm being totally honest, because he's kind of an interesting guy. And even if I wasn't doing it on, even if I wasn't talking specifically about this group, if I just did, a little thing on this guy, that's all I would need, because he's one of... in my opinion, one of the most fascinating figures in the entirety of our sub-history, whatever you'd call it, a counterculture, underground history. He's one of those guys that I remember reading at one point that the comedian from the Watchmen movies was sort of based on this guy, and what you're gonna hear from him, if you're familiar with the Watchmen series or the graphic novel or the movie or anything, and you're familiar with the comedian, he's the ultimate gritty spy, but also a real a real dirtbag, and to go away from this for a moment. I just want to clarify for all the nerds out there, he's also based on Peacemaker and one other guy, from what I understand. But there is some Frank Sturgis in there. But Frank Sturgis is a fascinating guy. He was, I should just read this, but maybe I'll just skip the beginning just because I can just summarize it myself. He was one of the 5 Watergate burglars, and he was in the Cuban Revolution of 1958. He worked as an undercover operative for the CIA and was alleged to be involved in the assassination of JFK. Now, I think that pretty much sums it up. He's a fascinating guy. And I say that with, I guess, a slight respect for him, but only from a standpoint where I'm fascinated by these individuals and these people that I talk about. And even if I don't like them or what they did, I'm still fascinated or interested in trying to understand or look into what they did. And just because to me it's history. And honestly, I feel like history is interesting in and of itself, but the things that they don't want to tell you in history, it fills a lot of gaps, and you start to understand things more about the day-to-day life that you live in. Let's say that there really are aliens and we really do have technology from aliens. What's to stop that from being in everyday things like the lasers that we've seen that the Navy now currently has? What's to stop this technology from being, put into our everyday smartphones or just anything that we utilize every day? I mean, there could be some sort of technology that we acquired in some kind of weird way that maybe we're not privy to on a day-to-day basis, but it's still there and it still permeates our life. Now that could be applied to anything, but that's just history. Everything that happens has repercussions across time, and for lack of a better way to put it, space. Everything that we do affects everything that comes. I mean, that's just obvious to say, but you just have to understand history to understand what's happening now, even. But I always found that this guy was very interesting because he is essentially like a Forrest Gump in CIA history. He's been in all of the major crazy events that have happened in the CIA. At least that's what from not. I mean, obviously there's probably a whole bunch of them, but this one guy connects so many different things that the government's been involved in that I think are just fascinating. And even potentially you could say terrifying, but I just think it's interesting because it's a piece of history that nobody talks about. You know, it was the Cold War. You know, things happened that are beyond us. You know, things that we don't even realize happen. We were next to nuclear annihilation every single day, but there were little moments where we were right there. That everything could have ended because of some kind of plane malfunction or some like Boeing now, or some kind of crazy thing happened where just anything could go down and a nuke is on that plane, like I'm saying, like a fighter jet or something, and just could cause a potential skirmish that we are not anticipating. There's a famous movie that I like. It's one of my I love it. It's one of my favorite movies. It's called Doctor Strangelove. It's pretty much the idea of, it's a Peter Sellers movie. Great actor. He was the original Pink Panther. He plays 3 characters in it. Funny enough, it's a funny movie. It's darkly comical, and it's a Stanley Kubrick movie too. Also, and that's good to know because he's a very, very smart guy, and they think that the moon landing was faked. He was such a good director that they think that he faked the moon landing. What does that tell you? That he's an interesting guy himself. But he made this movie called Doctor Strangelove, and the idea is that there was a rogue general that somehow made a fighter pilot, like all the fighter pilots in the United States go towards Russia, and they were able to recall like pretty much all of them, but they were able to shoot down, I think, a couple of them, if I'm not mistaken. But in the end, one of them that they were going to shoot down, the one plane that we had been following, they shot it, but they ended up shooting its like its transponder, I guess you'd call it, like its way to like speak to the headquarters. And what had happened is, you know, they'd gotten all the planes down except for that one, and that one just led to, that was it. You know, that was it for everything. I mean, I think I can spoil the movie. It's an almost 70-year-old movie now, but the ending is literally just a montage of mushroom clouds because the ending is the end. That's it. Everything's gone, and that's it for the planet. And, you know, that could happen. That was the Cold War, though. That was an interesting time to be alive. But I will say, in all fairness, we did get a lot of very good technology out of that time, I guess. It was the space race, right? That was the time. So, here is some information about one Frank Sturgis. Originally, Frank Angelo Furioni, or Fiorini, that's what it is. When still a child, his family moved to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, obviously. But for those of you who don't know where Philadelphia is, Pennsylvania. On October 5th, 1942, in his senior year of high school, 17-year-old Frank Angelo Fiorini joined the United States Marine Corps and served under Colonel Red Mike. Oh, he's got his own nickname. Merritt A. Edson in the 1st Marine Raider Battalion in the Pacific Theater during the Second World War. On April 14, 1942, William Donovan, as a coordinator of information, forerunner of the of the Office of Strategic Services activated units charged with gathering intelligence, harassing the Japanese through guerrilla actions, identifying targets for the Army Air Force to bomb, and rescuing downed Allied airmen. This was what led to Stilwell's Chinese forces, Wingate's raiders, and Merrill's marauders' involvement in the war. Frank got trained in guerrilla tactics and gathering intelligence, which became useful in his later events. Honorably discharged as a corporal in 1945, he enrolled at Virginia Polytechnic Institute. I should also mention that he was born in Norfolk, Virginia also. So a little close to home there, I guess. Polytechnic Institute. But left college and joined the Norfolk Police Department on June 5th, 1946. Really close to home. He soon discovered a corrupt payoff system and brought it to the attention of his superiors, who told him to overlook the illegal activities. On October 5th, 1946, he had a confrontation with a sergeant, resigned the same day. For the next 18 months, he managed the Havana Madrid Tavern in Norfolk that catered to foreigners, mostly Cuban merchant seamen. On November 9th, 1947, Fiorini joined the United States Naval Reserve at the Norfolk Naval Air Station and learned to fly while still working at the tavern. He was honorably discharged on August 30th, 1948, and joined the United States Army. The next day, he was sent immediately to West Berlin, where the USSR had closed the land routes during the Berlin blockade, and he became a member of General Lucius Clay's honor guard. 2 weeks after the USSR reopened the land routes on May 11, 1949, Fiorini was honorably discharged as a Marine raider. Fiorini had worked behind enemy lines gathering intelligence, and during his Army tenure in Berlin and Heidelberg, he had a top-secret clearance and worked in an intelligence unit whose primary target was the Soviet Union. Fiorini started to believe that Russia was a threat and became a lifelong militant, returning to Norfolk in 1952. He took a job managing the Cafe Society Tavern, then partnered with its owner, Milton Bass, to co-purchase and manage the Top Hat nightclub in Virginia Beach. On September 23, 1952, Frank Fiorini filed a petition for the Circuit Court of the City of Norfolk, Virginia, to change his name to Frank Sturgis, adopting the Sturgis name, the surname of his father, Ralph Sturgis, whom his mother had married in 1937. His new name closely resembled that of Hank Sturgis, the fictional hero of E. Howard Hunt's 1949 novel Bimini Run, whose life paralleled Frank Sturgis' life from 1942 to 49 in certain salient respects. That's pretty fascinating. This guy that spent a lot of time with Frank Sturgis and ended up running with him in all these top-secret spy novels, spy operations, which I want to read that spy novel now, the one that E. Howard Hunt wrote, called Bimini Run. That just sounds crazy if that's about Frank Sturgis. Like, they could make a movie about Frank Sturgis and just call it Bimini Run. Like, really? Unless that's, like, part of, like, the plot of the book is that Bimini Run is, like, an overarching thing that happens or is like Cuba or whatever. In 1956, Sturgis... I digress. In 1956, Sturgis moved to Cuba and went to Mexico, Venezuela, Costa Rica, Guatemala, Panama, and Honduras. Sturgis moved to Miami in 1957, where the Cuban wife of his uncle Angelo Vona introduced him to the former Cuban president Carlos Prio, who joined with other Cubans opposing dictator Fulgencio Batista to plot their return to power. Now, Frank had gotten together with an old friend, Richard Sanderlin, who was also a Norfolk, Virginia native. Once they had relocated to Miami, Florida, they began an arms... Again, if you don't know where Miami is. They began an armed munitions smuggling operation into Cuba. It seems like arms are always getting smuggled in and out of Miami. I don't know. Maybe I should, continue this, conversation at a later date when I discuss more Miami-related conspiracies, but it seems like Miami is a very big smuggle spot. I guess with Cuba, but I don't know, maybe other things are smuggled there, or other, I don't know, from other places. Anyways, let's see. Smuggled, Miami, let's see. They began an arms and munition smuggling operation into Cuba. Bound for the rebels of Fidel Castro, they were sending money to Mexico to support Fidel Castro, whose July 26 movement had arranged a meeting between CIA Inspector General Lyman Kirkpatrick and their representatives in 1957 by Pepin Bosch, an executive of the Bacardi Corporation. That's weird. Prio asked Sturgis to go to the Cuba, join up with the Castro, and report back to the exiled powers in Miami. So he went down and met with Castro while Richard Sandelin traveled to the Sierra Maestra Mountains in Oriente Province, Cuba, where he began training the Castro rebels in military tactics, or military strategy, tactics, weapon handling, and hand-to-hand fighting. In 1958, Frank made contact with the CIA in Cuba at the U.S. consulate in Santiago. He worked as an informer for the agency with the control officer Sam Hennis. Sturgis also became, or Sam Genis, depending. Sturgis also became involved running guns to Cuba, along with mobster Santo Trafficante, and not surprisingly, famous mobster, and not surprisingly, was arrested for illegal possession of arms, but released without charge. In 1959, Sturgis had contact with casinos in Cuba, and some say met Louis McWillie, mobster Trafficante's man in Cuba and the manager of the Tropicana Casino, who by his own testimony was a known acquaintance of Jack Ruby. Sturgis met up with Castro and his 400 rebels in the Sierra Maestra Mountains. Sturgis offered to train Castro's troops in guerrilla warfare. Castro accepted the offer, but he also had an immediate need for guns and ammunition. So Sturgis became a gun runner, using money from anti-Batista Cuban exiles in Miami, and some suspect the CIA. Sturgis purchased boatloads of weapons and ammunition from CIA weapons expert Samuel Cummings, International Armament Corporation in Alexandria, Virginia, because I don't know where that is. Sturgis explained later that he chose to throw in with Castro rather than Prio because Fidel was a soldier, a man of action, whereas Prio was a politician, more of a man of words. In March 1958, Sturgis opened a training camp in the Sierra Maestra Mountains where he taught Che Guevara and other 26 of July movement rebel soldiers guerrilla warfare. When Castro seized power, a rebel firing squad on San Juan Hill executed 71 of their opponents on January 11, 1959, into an awaiting 40-foot ditch that had been opened with a bulldozer. Although Sturgis did not take part in the execution, he was photographed afterwards holding a rifle on top of a covered mass grave. His friend Richard Sanderlin completed the training of Raul Castro's Second Front and led a guerrilla band into combat operations against the Cuban army of Batista. Castro then appointed Sturgis gambling czar and director of security and intelligence for the Air Force. In addition to his position as a captain in the July 26 movement, this whole Wikipedia article, it's not just me. I mean, it's me stumbling sometimes too. But this whole Wikipedia article has very odd grammar and punctuation, and I'm trying my best to keep it easy to follow, but it's like the person that wrote this was half writing it almost like random facts, but I'm trying to write it as a cohesive narrative, which is what it should be because that's the way it's broken up for the most part. But it feels like sometimes it'll take a turn where they just say things and there should have been periods there or something, and it just keeps going. Yeah. They requested from Metropolitan Criminal Intelligence Supervisor Frank Capel information on Meyer and Jake Lansky, Joe Salesi, a.k.a. Joe Rivers, and Santos Trafficante. Oh, maybe I'm a little bit ahead. Castro appointed Sturgis gambling czar and director of security and intelligence for the Air Force, in addition to his position as captain in the July 26 movement. Sturgis went to Miami with Alan McDonald while supervising the investigation of several American gamblers. Those are all the ones that I just mentioned. Meyer Lansky, Joe Lansky. We all know those guys. Joe Salesi, a.k.a. Joe Rivers, and Santos Trafficante. We all know these guys, famous mobsters. They were running things at the time. that was provided them 6 days later after the Cuban government. And if anybody doesn't know about all those guys, I actually would really love to do like a whole segment on all of them, really, like all of the famous mobsters. Maya Lansky would definitely be in that group, and pretty much all those guys that are on that list. Jack Ruby, Lucky Luciano, which I'm pretty sure he comes up here too, but I don't think he's come up yet. But all right. He was introduced to 2 men that were transported to Cuba from Venezuela to assist in the organization of the revolution, and Frank saw they were clearly communist. Uh-oh. He began to sound out those that he knew were anti-communists, including Camilo Cienfuegos, as he knew leaders like Raul Castro and Che Guevara were communists. But he was unsure about Fidel Castro. Sturgis detected the following month with Revolutionary Air Force Chief Commandant Pedro Luis Diaz-Lanz, and they joined the anti-Castro exile opposition. Sturgis participated with him a few months later in an anti-Castro leaflet dropping raid over Cuba. They love to do those dropping raids of leaflets. It's just like, it's such a simple psychological warfare tactic. Like if you're gonna like manipulate people, like dropping leaflets, I guess works, but it's like so like I don't know. It just seems like a very passive tactic. But I guess that's the point, right? Because you don't want to just be in their face with it. Just like, here, you want to do this, do this. Here's some info. Anyways, I feel like, though, that also causes an issue for people that are there. Like, what if a kid finds, like, this pamphlet and he's like, this fell out of the sky. I'm going to bring it home. And what if they start going after all the people that have those pamphlets? And then it's just like, boom. A little kid gets arrested. I mean, obviously, this is like a completely made-up scenario that I've invented in my head, but, it's possible. It's possible, especially in communist dictatorships or even fascist dictatorships. It could go both ways. Anyways, Anti-Communist Brigade, which Hans Tanner in his book Counter-Revolutionary Agent says the organization was being financed by dispossessed hotel and gambling owners from Cuba. The border, that's interesting. So is that the mob? Is that what they're insinuating out of that? The Border Patrol in Miami reported that Sturgis was involved in a CIA operation being financed by Sergio Rojas, former Cuban ambassador to Great Britain, to overthrow Castro. That's wild. It has been claimed with little in the way of evidence, that's, I guess, good to know, that Sturgis was involved in helping the CIA organize the Bay of Pigs invasion. I think that's pretty evident from his previous work in guerrilla warfare. I mean, he should have been. Maybe that's why it failed, because he wasn't. Maybe that's why we had so many issues with the Bay of Pigs. Like, that's wild. For whose ultimate failure he blamed President Kennedy. Blame yourself, Sturgis. What did Kennedy have to do with this? I guess Kennedy pulled out, and they didn't like that, right? That's why he pulled out of the situation and was like, yeah, I didn't have much to do with that. And, let's not deal with this shit. But it's like, if you're going to, like, go behind the president's back and you continue this operation or do it, like, above him, then it's like, what do you expect? He's the border of the people to the government to the people. So it's what do you expect from the president? I mean, I would hope that the president is on the side of the people like that and will be like, hey, you know what? We're not trying to start World War III. But I digress. This next character in our little story is pretty interesting herself. Name is Marita Lorenz, and she's another interesting character in and of herself. But I actually didn't know this next part, and, you guess you learn when you take a step close and look at it. But Sturgis recruited 19-year-old Marita Lorenz. That's what it said. I didn't realize that. I thought she was just, because it says who was close to Fidel Castro. I thought she was just close to Fidel and just came to the CIA somehow and was like, hey, I can help you guys. Anyways, apparently she came and she took CIA pills, which she hid in her face cream to poison Castro. But the plot failed. And also, this is probably going to come up again, but I just think that this is kind of fascinating that they tried to kill Castro. I maybe this is an exaggeration, and maybe I'm saying the wrong number here, but I think that they tried to kill Castro something like 300 times or over 300 times. I could be wrong about that, but this dude is crazy. Like, how can you survive 300 attempted assassinations? That's fascinating. Like, that's just like crazy. And now, that's it for it. Anyways, she hid in her face cream to poison Castro, but the plot failed, of course. According to Lorenz, she met Sturgis again before the Kennedy assassination in 1963, with others planning a big event. Interesting to keep that in mind. Lorenz stated that she joined Sturgis traveling to Dallas after the meeting. Lorenz later testified about this Kennedy assassination plot before the House Select Committee on Assassinations. Sturgis was claimed to be a member of Operation 40, a CIA-sponsored counterintelligence group composed of Cuban exiles. The group was formed to seize control of the Cuban government after the Bay of Pigs invasion. The operation was concentrating on Cuba and were operating out of Mexico. Despite his claimed involvement in numerous CIA-sponsored operations, including the Bay of Pigs invasion, the 1975 Rockefeller Commission succinctly states that Frank Sturgis was not an employee or agent of the CIA either in 1963 or at any other time. I guess not. He was in the Army, he was in the Marines, he was in a lot of things. The Navy, I think, right? That was another one. This dude was in a lot of stuff. He was involved in a lot of crazy situations. I'm going to have to look up the rest of these guys, too, because they're all involved in this. But on June 17, 1972, Sturgis, Virgilio Gonzalez, Eugenio, Bernard Baker, and James W. McCord Jr. were arrested while installing electronic listening devices in the National Democratic Party. Does this all sound familiar to anybody? Campaign. Offices located at the Watergate Office Complex in Washington. The White House office telephone number of CIA officer E. Howard Hunt was found in address books of the burglars. Reporters were able to link the break-in to the White House. The burglars had successfully entered into the same location several weeks earlier, but returned to fix a malfunctioning device and to photograph more documents. Bob Woodward, speaking of Bob Woodward, I really gotta read All the President's Men. That seems like it would be a good book. Great movie, but it would probably be a great book to read. Anyways, Bob Woodward, a reporter working for the Washington Post, was told by a source, famous Deep Throat, who was employed by the government, that senior aides of President Nixon had paid the burglars to obtain information about his political opponents. Now, I'm going to throw in my own little theory on this situation, too. And I think maybe there might be some evidence to this later, but I could be mistaken. I think part of the reason wasn't just that these guys were hired by Nixon in order to go in and bug this place. I think they were probably gathering documents related to even the Kennedy assassination. I think what they were doing was trying to maybe cover up anything related to the Republican Party at that time, and like say the big oil companies or something like that to do with the Kennedy assassination. I think these guys that were originally involved in the Kennedy assassination were getting documents relating to it. Another theory, and I think they maybe say this too, but I could be wrong, is that they could have also been gathering documents about the work on Cuba, and that could have been like a net negative for for the Republicans, I guess, or for just the government in general, or for this particular group of CIA rogues, quote unquote. I guess LBJ, I think, said that according to his mistress, but we'll get to that. Frank Sturgis, Betrayed in All President's Men by Ron Hale. Cool. Movie detailing the film events of Watergate. Now, check this out. In January 1973, Sturgis, Hunt, Gonzalez, Martinez, Barker, G. Gordon Liddy, famous G. Gordon Liddy, he turned, he became an actor eventually, G. Gordon Liddy, so I guess keep all that in mind with all the crazy stuff that he gets into. Sturgis was convicted in 1973. Oh, sorry. James W. McCord were convicted of conspiracy, burglary, and wiretapping. All those guys, all involved in the wiretapping and the getting documents of the Democratic National Convention or whatever, Watergate Hotel, whatever you want to call it. Sturgis was convicted in 1973 with Max Gonzalez and Jerry Buchanan in a federal court in Miami of transporting cars stolen in Texas into Mexico. This prompted the DEA acting regional director David W. Costa, gotta show respect, to send a letter to Judge C. Clyde Atkins on March 10th, 1970. Also, I just want to ask, what makes you a C. Clyde Atkins? Like, how do you block out your first name and keep your middle name as your name, and then, you're just Clyde Atkins at that point, right? Like, why C. Clyde Atkins? Like, is that a judge thing? Is that's I've heard of that. Not just judges, I've heard of people doing that. It makes you sound like an outlaw. C. Clyde Atkins. Anyways, C. Clyde Atkins on March 10, 1975, indicating that Sturgis had been covertly cooperating with the DEA. Sturgis served 14 months in the minimum security federal prison in Eaglin, Florida. After leaving prison, Sturgis served as a Miami police informant and continued providing intelligence of the anti-Castro activities of Dr. Orlando Bosch. Not really, I looked up this Dr. Orlando Bosch guy, and you don't really have to look into him if you don't want to. It's just, I guess, it adds further context to the situation. But he was just kind of like a bad guy. That's the best way to describe him without getting into too many details. He just wasn't a good guy. We'll put it to you that way. So, St. George's article was published in True Magazine in August 1974. Sturgis claims that the Watergate burglars had been instructed to find a particular document in the Democratic Party offices. This was a secret memorandum from the Castro government that included details of CIA covert action. Well, there you go. Sturgis about these operations, even to American political... Sturgis said that the Castro government suspected the CIA did not tell the whole truth about these operations, even to American political leaders. In response, Sturgis repeated braggadocio to the news media. That's great. The CIA issued a public statement on May 30th, 1975, indicating that he had never been connected with them in any way. Quote, in any way. In an interview with the New York Daily News reporter Paul Mescal on June 20th, 1975, Sturgis stated, I was a spy. I was involved in assassination plots and conspiracies to overthrow several foreign governments, including Cuba, Panama, Guatemala, the Dominican Republic, and Haiti. I smuggled arms and men into Cuba for Castro and against Castro. I broke into intelligence files. I stole and photographed secret documents. That's what spies do. Now move away from this for a second. Tell me not this guy sounds like an American James Bond. Just like a fumbling, like, American James Bond. Just like a dude who's just like, yeah, I'm a spy. Maybe, I mean, he sounds like a shitty James Bond, but he sounds like that kind of like vibe of just like, yeah, I do spy things. What can I tell you? I'm a spy guy. That's what spies do. I mean, he doesn't talk like that, right? Because he's not from New York. He's from, well, he was Philadelphia, right? I don't know. Whatever. Anyways, Sturgis was denied a pardon by President Jimmy Carter. Whoa. Gave you that one, Sturgis. Now, I don't know why. I guess I know why they didn't put all this in the before part, but I guess that ends, like, the idea of, like, Frank Sturgis in that era. But they're, like, now they go into the JFK conspiracy allegations. I mean, shouldn't this have been, like, a section before, not, like, after all that? I don't know. Just my 2 cents on the situations. Like, we got into Watergate at this point. Like, why are we going back to JFK? Let's go back to JFK when JFK, was going on. Anyways, Sturgis has been the subject of various allegations regarding the assassination of JFK. He also made claims that other individuals were involved in the assassination of Kennedy. Whoa. All right. Let's see. Early allegations. Sturgis as one of the 3 tramps. All right. Now, I mean, I don't even really have to go into this, but for, I guess, slight context, because they're going to explain it either way. So I might even be just, like, beating a dead horse here. But there was a picture of these 3 guys that were found in, like, a box cart known as the 3 tramps, and they were escorted by police. And I'm pretty sure, or at least allegedly, one of them is, at least the one photographed allegedly in the middle is Frank Sturgis. I mean, I don't know. When I look at him, I don't really see Frank Sturgis that much, but it could be, an off day for him, I guess. He looks kind of disheveled anyways. The Dallas Morning News, the Dallas Times-Herald, and the Fort Worth Star-Telegram photographed 3 transient under police escort near the Texas School Book Depository shortly after the assassination of Kennedy. The men later became known as the 3 tramps, according to Vincent Bugliosi. Richard E. Sprague, who compiled the photographs in 66 and 67 and subsequently turned them over to Jim Garrison. Jim Garrison. Isn't that the name of a famous comedian too? I don't know. Jim Garrison, during his investigation of Clay Shaw, appearing before a nationwide audience on December 31st, 1968, episode of The Tonight Show, Garrison held up a photo of the 3 that suggested they were involved in the assassination. Later in 1974, the assassination researchers Alan J. Weberman and Michael Canfield compared photographs of the men to people they believed to be suspects involved in a conspiracy and said that the 2 of the men were Watergate burglars Hunt and Sturgis. Comedian and civil rights activist Dick Gregory helped bring national media attention to the allegations against Hunt and Sturgis in 1975 after obtaining the comparison photographs from Weberman and Canfield. Look at that. Comedians doing a hell of a job of bringing things to light. Immediately after obtaining the photographs, Gregory held a press conference that received considerable coverage and I would just love to see, I'm sorry to move away from this, but I would just love to see what that broadcast was like, where Dick Gregory was just like, yeah, this is, weird. Why do these guys look like this guy? These guys are government guys. Why are they doing this? I don't know if that's how Dick Gregory talks, but I guess in this scenario, everybody talks like that, so it's all right. They all talk like they're like New York, rando deli guys or something like that. Anyways, immediately after obtaining the photographs, Gregory held a press conference that received considerable coverage and his charges reported in Rolling Stone and Newsweek. The Rockefeller Commission reported in 1975 that they investigated the allegation that Hunt and Sturgis, on behalf of the CIA, participated in the assassination of Kennedy. The final report of that commission stated that the witnesses who testified that the derelicts, quote unquote, bore a resemblance to Hunt and Sturgis, but were not shown to have any qualification in photo identification beyond that possessed by an average layman. And let me interject in this situation too, because, like, all right, we're at a, this was 1960 whatever. I'm lost with the timeline right now. 1979, yeah, 1979. This was 1979, I guess, or 1975, whatever. The 70s. This was in the 70s, right? And we didn't have like AI and all this shit to like identify like if a person is this person or that person in a picture. Like, couldn't they like now like take photos of these guys? And why haven't they? Why haven't they taken photos of the tramps and photos that they know are Frank Sturgis and just put them through some kind of AI thing and been like, here, are these the same guys or not? I'm sure a computer would be able to at least give you like an idea of like, hey, this is such and such match to that. I don't know. That's just my 2 cents. There's a lot that probably goes into all that. And, who knows? Maybe somebody did do exactly what I just described, but they're not talking about it. Or maybe I just didn't look it up. I just thought of this right now as we're talking about it, actually. So no way to look that up without taking myself completely out of this. The Rockefeller Commission, yada yada, derelicts bore resemblance, were not shown to have any qualification in photo identification beyond that possessed by an average layman. The report also stated that the FBI agent Lyndall L. Shaneyfelt, I'm not. Anyways, I guess Agent Shaneyfelt was good. Oh. Agent Shaneyfelt was a nationally recognized expert in photo identification and photo analysis. All right, so there you go. They had concluded from the photo comparison that none of the men were Hunt or Sturgis. Well, there you go. That solves that. I don't need to look there ever again. Who needs that? We'll just dust ourselves off from that one. I don't know. I mean, I certainly didn't think that the photo looked a lot like him, but who am I? I'm not nationally recognized expert in photo identification and photo analysis. I'm nowhere close to that. I probably have terrible vision, honestly, but who knows? In 1979, the House Select Committee on Assassination reported that forensic anthropologists had again analyzed and compared the photographs of the tramps with those of Hunt and Sturgis, as well as with photographs of Thomas Valle, Daniel Carswell, and Fred Lee Crisman. Fred Lee Crisman has a Wikipedia page. I'll just real quick see what he's all about. He was a fighter pilot and later educator from Tacoma, Washington, known for claims of paranormal events and ties to 20th. Oh, yeah. Now we're talking. This guy should have been in my list of people. I'm not even related to this, but this is awesome. This is just another interesting guy, known for claims of paranormal events and ties to the 20th century conspiracies. All right. I want to talk about this guy real quick because, I mean, Frank Sturgis is cool, but I've never heard of this Crisman guy, and this is just like wild. 1946, Crisman claimed to have battled with non-humans in caves during the Second World War. Okay. The following year, he attempted to convince 2 early flying saucer witnesses that lava rocks were in fact debris dropped from a flying saucer. This dude sounds wild. I like it, though. He's like the type of people that, we need to learn about. These are the interesting individuals of our reality, the ones that we cross paths with all the time. Like, who are these people? He said debris from a flying saucer with lava rocks. I mean, who knows? Maybe he's right, and maybe that was like a cover-up. It was actually debris from a flying saucer. But imagine a crazy guy who's telling you, oh my God, those lava rocks, that's the flying saucer debris. And you're like, I just saw a flying saucer, but now I'm also supposed to believe that lava rocks are flying. Maybe they are. Now that I think about it, where are you where you see lava rocks? Anyways, in 1968, Crisman was subpoenaed by a New Orleans grand jury in the prosecution of a local man for the assassination of Kennedy. Prosecution that would later be dramatized in the 91 Oliver Stone film JFK. Huh. That's interesting. Conspiracy authors considered Crisman a nexus point for a number of conspiracies and cover-ups in the late 1940s until his death in 1975. That's cool. This is crazy. I've never heard of this guy, ever. Ever. I thought I knew a lot of like conspiracies, but you learn things every day. You learn about people every day, and there's literally billions of people that exist, and there are billions of people that have existed. It's just crazy. Anyways, let's just find out some slight stuff about this Crisman guy, because normally I will say on this show I want to be able to talk about paranormal events, not just government conspiracies. I'm fascinated by the paranormal. I experienced something myself that I can't fully explain, and I try to find explanations for it. But you know what they say, the simplest explanation is the best explanation. I can't even find a simple explanation for it. I guess the simplest explanation is that me and somebody else witnessed something that was in our heads, but even then I don't think that that's the case. Another, I guess, idea is that this is all a simulation and that weird stuff happens and it's just glitches in the Matrix, right? That's what they say. It's a glitch in the Matrix. I'm fascinated by that, though, is that people, say they get knocked out and live like a life for 10 years and then wake up and they're just in the hospital after being knocked out. And then they claim that they've lived an entire life and have done things. I think that that's a fascinating thing. I think I seen that as a story on Reddit 10, 15 years ago or something, when I first found Reddit. Anyways, this Crisman guy, exactly what I'm looking for when it comes to the show. He's got the whole package. Government, paranormal, this is cool. Anyways, I don't want to get too into the beating around the bush of this guy. April 46, Crisman served as representative of the Washington State Bureau of Veterans Affairs when he called for safety inspections of some used cars. That month, Crisman filed run for coroner. In May, Crisman addressed the Tacoma... Why? What? He filed to run for coroner? Why? And you have to file... I did not know that you file to run for coroner. That's a thing? You have to file to be a coroner? It's essentially... It's a government office? Is that what this is telling me? Am I wrong to say that the coroner is a government office? That's crazy. I mean, or you filed to run for coroner, though. You filed to be a coroner. Okay, that makes sense. Because maybe, you got to put in the right things. It's like selling a house. You can't just sell a house. You got to get the right, things. It's working on a dead body, I guess. Or it's telling the cops, hey, this guy's dead. Anyways... In May, Crisman addressed the Tacoma Real Estate Board in Hotel Winthrop about veterans' real estate problems. In August 1946, Crisman, then described as the head of the State Department of Veterans Affairs, addressed the Seattle American Veterans Chapter. Later that month, he addressed the Lions Club on November 5th. Crisman lent his name to an ad endorsing Hugh J. Rossellini for prosecutor. That guy's got a Wikipedia page, but I'm already too deep, so I'm not going to go deeper. In November, unless something's crazy. In November 1946, Crisman, then described as a special investigator for the Bureau, gave a speech about mental illness in returning servicemen to the Kiwanis Club at the Hotel Winthrop. I mean, that's a nice thing to do. That's not too, crazy. And, I mean, that's ahead of its time, if anything, and, I guess they say that all things are ahead of their time when they really come out, but that truly is they needed that in Vietnam, and that's in 1946. That's impressive. In December 1946, Crisman was ejected to represent Washington members of Veterans Organization AMVETS at an upcoming session. In 1940, okay, so this is a different thing about him, and this is something that I thought was kind of odd that I just noticed but I've been kind of waiting to get to it. Relationship with Ray Palmer and Amazing Stories. Those that aren't familiar with either of those things, Ray Palmer was a famous author, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't read any of his stories, but I'm very familiar with Amazing Stories. They were all pulp like novels and magazines, or so to speak. And if you look at the cover of this particular Amazing Stories that they show, it almost reminds you of Indiana Jones, and that's why, is because Indiana Jones was going for like that pulpy, like almost like serial feel to it, spy pulpy kind of feel. Anyways, so he Pulp Magazine, Amazing Stories was an outlet for fantasy, science fiction, and fringe claims. Okay, there you go. I didn't know about the fringe claims thing, and maybe I should read up on my Amazing Stories a little bit more, because I have looked at them a few times, but I've only ever noticed like pulp tales and stuff like that. But I guess you could say some fringe claims could be written out as like little tales, like, ooh, I saw Bigfoot, and here's the story of it. I'm a mountain man, and I was trekking through the Appalachians, and all of a sudden I came upon a weird, mysterious creature whose eyes glow red in the dark, and I noticed it, and they just dramatized the story that like people, like, I guess, like they said, fringe claim. I would love to read some of those fringe claims, honestly. That would be pretty interesting. Anyways, so May 1946 issue, for example, in the Getting to the Fringe reportedly included True Fringe Adventures by Richard Sharpshaver, the fiction of Dorothy and John de Courcy, written in the style of Shaver, A Defense of Religions of Tibet by Mellon Cook, and the fiction of Robert Moore Williams, an allegedly true eyewitness account of unidentified objects in the sky by Dirk Wiley, and other genre-blurring texts. Okay, a lot to unpack there, but not a lot to dwell on. Promotion of the Shaver mystery. I guess they are going to dwell a little bit on it. In June 1946, I've never heard of the Shaver mystery, so maybe this is just something that I'll be interested in, because it's new. And to throw this out there too, I feel like I never hear of 1940s like pulpy conspiracies. Like, I mean, they're out there, like, government Men in Black type, stories and yada yada yada. I mean, a lot of that stuff though happens in like the 50s and 60s, but I'm sure there's like some kind of like political like conspiracies that we're missing that don't have to even do. I'm saying even outside of like the World War II of it, there's probably like a little time frame there between 45 and 55 where we're missing a lot of interesting stories that could be, just dealing with like UFOs or spies, the Cold War, just a lot of interesting stuff, really. I don't know. I personally feel like I never hear about that era in regards to stuff like that, but maybe I'm not looking in the right place, and it seems like this guy is the right place. So, I don't know. Let's continue. I've completely derailed the Operation 40 for the Frank Sturgis, but maybe not maybe. I'm going to come back to that as like, I guess, a part 2, but as soon as this guy came up, he just sounded fascinating. Anyways, a mysterious and evil... Alright, so this is what he wrote, Crisman wrote, in which he claimed to have battled a mysterious and evil underground creature to free himself from a cave in what is now northern Pakistan during World War II, wrote Crisman. Okay, this is World War II, but that's pretty cool. I flew my last combat mission on May 26, 1945, when I was shot up over Bassein and ditched my ship in Ramari roads off Shadub's, I'm probably butchering all these names, island. I was missing 5 days. I requested leave at Kashmir, and I and Captain, deleted by request, that's funny, left Seringar. They delete the easy to pronounce names and leave me with the names that I am not familiar with at all. Not that they're not easy to pronounce, but I'm just unfamiliar with this, with how to pronounce a lot of these. And went to Radak. Then through the Kisa Pass to the northern foothills of Kabakaram. We found what we were looking for. We knew what we were searching for. For heaven's sake, drop the whole thing. You were playing with dynamite. My companion and I fought our way out of a cave with submachine guns. I have 2 9-inch scars on my left arm that came from wounds given me in the cave when I was 50 feet from a moving object of any kind in perfect silence. The muscles were nearly ripped out. How? I don't know. My friend has a hole the size of a dime in his right bicep. It was seared inside. How, we don't know. But we both believe we know more about the shaver mystery than any other pair. That sounds odd. I'm not even finished with this yet, but that's odd. That's an odd story. I thought that was going one way, like Bigfoot, Yeti, like something a little more tangible, but that went a weird direction, right? And did I follow that correct? Friend, a hole in his right bicep. It was seared inside. We don't know how. But we don't know about the shape than any other pair. I can imagine my fright when I picked up my first copy of Amazing Stories and see you splashing words about the subject. Do not print our names. We are not cowards, but we are not crazy. Okay. Interesting. The letter was quoted in September 1946 issue of Harper's Magazine as an example of a crackpot letter. In May 1947, Amazing Stories published a second Crisman letter, this time identifying him by name. In this letter, Crisman claimed to have traveled to Alaska with his friend Dick, who was killed there. Oh, poor Dick. What happened to Dick? Did he kill him? Roland Maury Island incident. They're just gonna leave it there, or is this the Maury Island incident? Like, how did Dick die? I want to know. Claimed to have traveled to Alaska with his friend Dick, who was killed there. That's just it. Dick's dead. We're not gonna know how Dick died. We're not gonna know Dick's name. We're not gonna know anything else other than just, hey, yeah, Dick and Crisman went to Alaska. Crisman came back. Dick didn't. Like, no, that's funny, but that's weird. Well, why can't they tell us? Maybe they just didn't want to just get into that whole thing, I guess. I don't know. There is a source here that I could go to. I just don't feel like I said, keep going down into the rabbit hole like that deep. I mean, I'm pretty deep right now. Yeah. I'm on Crisman right now. Anyways, Fred Crisman, Roland Maury Island incident. In 1947, Crisman was involved with Harold Dahl in the Maury Island incident, an early UFO incident widely considered to be a hoax, even within UFOlogy. Interesting. Dahl believed the 60s TV series The Invaders was based on Crisman's life. What? What is the deal with this guy? They're also throwing out a lot of random stuff, but they're not saying why. I mean, maybe you have to know, but they're just like, yeah. Oh yeah, this is like that. That's crazy. I mean, they kind of did that with the Bimini Run thing, but I guess you could just look into what happened in Frank Sturgis and then look into the plot of Bimini Run and be like, oh yeah, that happened. Anyways, in January 1950, the issue of Fate magazine, Crisman insisted the incident was not a hoax. Fate magazine? What is that all about? I'm just going to hover over that and find out. A USA magazine about paranormal phenomena. Fate was co-founded in 1948 by Raymond A. Palmer and Curtis Fuller. That sounds cool. That sounds like a good magazine. I would love to get my hands on some Fate magazines. Anyways, Crisman insisted the incident was not a hoax. Why, if we were such blackguards and deliberately caused the deaths of 2 Air Force pilots and the loss of a $150,000 airplane, did not the government or some agency there attempt to seek justice through the courts of the state and federal government? Hey, the guy brings up a good point. I mean, if they wanted to, they could have even just pinned this whole thing on him. But no, they were just like, yeah, we got no idea. We don't know what's going on here. Yeah, the airplane thing, whatever. It happens. Nobody's going to jail. It was just, weird shit happens. People are dead. It happens. Anyways, on July 22nd, 1967, Crisman spoke at a UFO convention in Seattle about the Maury Island incident. Okay, great. So this guy kind of was like going around and like talking about stuff. I guess that makes sense. University student. Is any of this related to anything crazy? Crisman entered congressional record. China has fallen to the Reds. Indochina is on the verge and will go soon. Crisman continued. It makes me mad to see it all go. White people I thought were in the know groveling back up before a gang of international brigands. Again, this is a quote. Whose only difference from the Nazis is the cut of their uniforms. Interesting. I no longer think the people guiding our State Department know just what they're doing. Hey, you know what, Crisman? Your words speak volumes, and let's just say I think that statement has cut through time. I don't know how to say it. It's transcended time. That's the correct way to put that. That statement has transcended time. I no longer think the people guiding our State Department know just what they're doing. I agree with you, Crisman. I'm sure I agree with you in 1947, but or 1950, whatever this was. But I also agree with you now, and I'm sure you might agree now. Who knows? Maybe you'd love what's happening now, and since you died. I don't know. But, yeah. Anyways, in September 1950, Crisman was a Willamette University student. That's an interesting name because, unrelated, Dead Rising, Willamette Mall. I don't know. Maybe it takes place in like the same, like Colorado, I think. That's where, Oregon. Maybe that's where the game takes place. Anyways, great game. Like Grand Theft Auto with zombies. Awesome. Play it. Just came out with a remastered version. Highly, highly recommend. Anyways, in October 1950, he wrote a letter to the editor complaining about the inability of local barbers to give him military trim. In 1951, while studying at Willamette University, Crisman received a teaching assignment at Salem High. On June 10, 1951, Crisman was awarded a Bachelor of Arts. Okay. Amid the Korean War in April 1951, it was reported that Crisman had been ordered to active duty. That conflict ended in July 1953. In 1953, he returned to teaching in Elgin, Oregon. There goes Elgin again. Hey, yeah, that Elgin, yeah. Or no, what was it? Florida? Was it Elgin, Florida? Was Elgin, Oregon? Was it last time? Anyways, Frank Sturgis, right? He went to Elgin. Or was it Florida? I don't know. He worked as a teacher and administrator at high schools in Washington, Oregon. I'm not going to connect that because maybe there's no connection at all. In December 53, Crisman served as director of high school drama club. In 1955, Crisman accepted a job as superintendent at Huntington. Ooh, excuse me. I just, stomach's growling a little bit there. I'm probably going to have to get food soon. Yeah, we'll see. Crisman was charged with drunken disorderly resisting arrest. Whoa, where did we go? Crisman, what's going on, buddy? Why are you getting drunken disorderly and resisting arrest? Oh, and I didn't even get to the best part, him pulling a firearm on the arresting officer. Oh my God. No, here's the best part. He was fined $100. I mean, I'm sure $100 wasn't like, I'm sure it was a lot of money at that time, but like, still. Drunken disorderly conduct, basically, resisting arrest and then pulling a firearm on the officer. Yeah, sir, that'll be $100. Sleep it off, please. Like, what? In 1958, Crisman was cited in connection with the local tradition of a fictional high school student at White River High. What? What did I just read? Crisman was cited in connection with a local tradition of a fictional high school student at White River High. What does any of that even mean? Am I dumb for not understanding what I just read? A local of a fictional high school student? Everything makes sense, but they throw fictional in there, and what? So the high school student wasn't real? But he was cited in connection with a local tradition. What does local tradition even mean? Do they mean that in like the classic sense, like a thing, like a thing that you do? I don't know. I'm confused by that one line, really. White River High. Let me just see. Is that a real place? A public secondary school. Yeah. Uh, what's the deal with this cited connection with a fictional high school student? What? What is that? What does any of that mean? I'm sorry to dwell on these certain things, but I don't get it, so I want to understand it. But it's like, what? What does any of that mean? Also in 1958, Crisman took a course at Pacific Lutheran University. In 1959, Crisman organized a fundraising project that sold booklets about the varsity basketball team. This is a weird guy. Like, this is all about his... I should have... I don't think I mentioned, but this is all his teaching career. And maybe I don't even have to read any of this. Like, maybe no, nobody has to know about it. But he's a weird guy, right? He's not a normal dude, even considering all the stuff. Like, he's oddly normal in some cases, but he's just a weird guy in others. That or they're just saying weird stuff about him. Like, he's such an innocuous guy, but he's involved in so much weird shit. What happened to Dick? I still don't know what happened to Dick. He never said what happened to Dick. I want to know what happened to Dick. I don't know. Weird guy. Anyways, teaching career. Crisman civics class authored a letter to the editor, death penalty case arguing it has time to come when the United States takes orders from other countries. Crisman case is a problem which is testing the judicial stability of the United States. Blah, blah, blah. All right. I don't think his teaching career is really going anywhere for me on this. I mean, which sucks because, I see something that's interesting. I was kind of reading a little bit ahead to see if there was anything of note. Anything. And maybe I should have just done that the whole time because really just getting to this paragraph would have been worth it to keep it. I just learned that he's a weird guy for most of this. But anyways, February 21st, 1966, Crisman was suspended and later dismissed from his teaching position at Cascade High on a charge of insubordination and creating a secret society. What? That's where I looked at it. I'm like, this is what? The board added that the organization of such a nature that should not be condoned or authorized to exist in this district. No, not here. Go take that secret society jargon and bring it to the other high school in across town, in north wherever this is, or south wherever this is. Like, what? Well, this is crazy. Like, why is this dude starting a secret society? I mean, I would love to create a secret society, but I'm not going to. Even if I was, I think that would be more normal for me to do that than for a teacher in a high school to do that. One that's, I guess, mentioned fictional high school students that he has local traditions with or something, whatever that part was. I don't know. I'm trying to figure that out, and I'm trying to figure Dick out. That sounds weird. I'm trying to figure out what happened to Dick, the guy that I mentioned earlier. It makes no sense. What happened to him? They just said that he got killed. How? How did he get killed? And why was this dude creating secret societies and doing so much weird shit? I don't understand. It's beyond me, obviously. But still, I don't know. Anyways, creating a secret society, the board added should not be condoned. Obviously, it shouldn't be condoned. Yeah, go do that somewhere else. Go start a secret society working at Walmart or something. Did they have Walmarts in 1966? I don't remember. I forgot when Walmart started. Anyways, probably. Yeah, right? The 50s, right? Wasn't it a 50s thing, Walmart? I don't know. If anybody actually listens to this and hears this part, Please comment in the comments when Walmart started. Or let me know if you know me personally, because I forgot. I thought it was like 1950s, but I could be mistaken about that. Anyways, yeah, go start a secret society in Walmart. Why you got to do it in a random high school? In what, Oregon? That's where this was? Weird place. I love Oregon. That being said, I honestly wouldn't mind living in Oregon. It's a beautiful place. It seems like a beautiful country up there, but it certainly is a weird place with weird people. And you know what? Now that I think about it, this guy makes sense that he lives in Oregon. No offense to Oregon people. You're all cool in my book. But, sometimes, places have people that can just be a little strange. And Oregon is just like any other place, and, people can be a little strange. Anyways, this guy's starting a secret society. I mean, I guess that depends on your definition of strange. Is it strange he was starting a secret society in high school? Like, who joins that secret society? Hey, superintendent, I'm trying to start this secret society. We meet every Wednesday. We have a blood oath. We're trying to figure it out right now, but I have this tradition that you'll never meet the person, but they're a great guy. Me and him, he's a high school student actually here. Maybe you'll meet him. I don't know. Maybe you already know him. Maybe he's not real. Anyways, what happened to Dick? Anyways, also, superintendent, let's start a secret society. Superintendent says, no, I'm not doing that because that's a weird thing to do in a high school. And hey, you're getting fired, buddy. Or did he get fired? I forgot. It was suspended and later dismissed. Like, that's them not wanting to fire you, but being like, yo, you cannot stick around. You're dismissed. Is dismissed even just a soft fire? Isn't that what dismissed means? I could be wrong about that, but if I'm telling somebody they're dismissed, it's not exactly like I'm giving them an option. I'm not telling them that they can come back. Maybe the possibility is there that they can come back, maybe not, but if I'm telling somebody you're dismissed, that's ultimately like, hey, we're done here. There's no more to this situation between you and me. And maybe that was for the best. This guy, hey, maybe he was a good teacher, but it seems like he was better in politics and better in the government, honestly. If I'm being totally honest with you. He seemed like a weird teacher, a weird guy. But you know what? I also gotta admit that all of my favorite teachers, whether they were in a positive way or a negative way, all of my favorite teachers were weird guys. Not guys necessarily, just weird people. You know what I mean? Just interesting individuals. And you know what? This guy definitely is interesting, to say the very least. Hey, principal, let's start a secret society. You up for it? Like, what are you thinking, Crisman? Come on. Fred Crisman. What are you doing, buddy? What are you doing? Anyways, that's wild. Business and politics. In 1966, an FBI informant claimed that Crisman had transported $100,000 in cash to California, was doing business as a psychologist, and was suspected of operating a diploma mill. What? Dude, Crisman, what are you doing, buddy? Why? Why are you doing this? Just work for the government at that point, right? Is he like a disinformation agent, or like is he like the real deal? Like, is he putting himself in these situations where he's like getting these people together, like like what the government, like a honeypot, I guess is what they would call it. Like, is he trying to gain like all like these get attention from people that he's trying to rope into these issues? Because how can you go from like being on that side of the military or the government to being like there, you know what I mean? Getting transporting $100,000 cash and doing business as a psychologist and suspected of operating a diploma. And how can you be suspected? Did they figure it out? Did they figure out Dick? I'll just let that one sit. Did they figure out what happened to Dick? Did they figure out what happened to this operating a diploma mill? They suspected of operating a diploma mill. Why are you going to say suspected? Leave the guy alone. I'm starting to... You know what? I'm on Crisman's side now. Leave the guy alone. He's suspected of all these things. Maybe he didn't do them. Maybe he did. It was alleged. This is all allegedly, of course. I don't know. Sorry for all the extra noises too. I'm moving around in my chair a little bit. I do apologize if that is annoying to people or if any extra noises are annoying to people. But I don't know. If you don't want to listen to me, don't. But I'll try to do my best. Anyways, back to the Fate magazine. In July 1966, Fate magazine ran an ad for the Western Division of Parapsychological Society. Okay, that's a cool name. That's a good name, actually. So, like the California, study ESP and telekinesis and stuff. Hey, I can move stuff with my mind over here. Let me pick it up and then put it back down. I guess they wouldn't talk like that in the California or the Western Division of that. That would be more the Eastern Division of Parapsychological Society. Anyways, inviting new members to join back. Imagine that a scientist in the Eastern Division, they're on the phone with the Western Division. They're like, the Western Division's like, excuse me, sir, have you figured out about those brainwave patterns that we've been studying in those I don't know, in those sheep that we have in the clone farm? And then the other guys over there are just like, yo, we don't got shit over here. We don't know what's going on. We don't know about Dick either. That's besides the point. We got no sheep that got the brain waves. I don't know what to tell you. Let me just let me put you on hold for a second. I'll ask for a second opinion or something. And then they just put him on hold, and then he never gets back to him because that's just how it goes. Anyways, you're inviting new members, join contacting F. Lee Crisman, PhD. Does this guy have a PhD? Did I miss something? Maybe I read it and it just didn't occur to me. I mean, he did say he was a psychologist. Is he does he have a PhD like Hunter S. Thompson has a PhD? Is that what I'm gathering from this? By the way, I love Hunter S. Thompson. Yeah, he's got a PhD in journalism, bro. He's got a doctorate in journalism, I guess, technically, but, what is a PhD, right? In November 1966, Crisman founded the Professional Research Bureau with T. Edward Beckham and C. Roba Bates. I think I did that one pretty well. Or Cyroba. I mean, either way. Seeking to conduct research and consultation within the fields of paleology, P-E-ology? Paleology, I guess, or peology, simply, but paleology seems right. Research and industrial psychology. Okay. Public relations and criminology. Oh, I like all this stuff. I would have been one of these guys back in the day. I would have been, send me to the criminal and the psychological and public relations guy. I would have loved that. Peology research. Maybe that I should study peology. Sounds like an odd name, but peology, let's do it. Let's study all the weird crimes and psychologies and public relations. Public relations part's a little odd, but, whatever. On March 1st, 1967, New Orleans... Oh, by the way, this is a new part. Role in the Clay Shaw trial. I'm not too sure what Clay Shaw is, but we'll find out in a second, right? On March 1st, 1967, New Orleans businessman Clay Shaw was arrested for conspiring to assassinate John F. Kennedy. What? And just for a little context, Clay Shaw was an American businessman, military officer, and part-time contact of the Domestic Contact Service of the CIA. Shaw is best known for being the only person brought to trial for the involvement in the assassination of JFK. Little fun fact there. Anyways, Shaw was arrested. According to the controversial district attorney Jim Garrison, there he goes again, that comedian Jim Garrison, In Jim Garrison, the comedian that had the Hot Pockets joke? Or am I thinking of a different guy? I thought that's what his name was, but I don't know. I digress. Jim Garrison, first person Shaw called after being charged was Fred Crisman. What? So this is where Crisman comes into this whole situation. So why was Crisman, why was he the first one to get called? Why would Jim Garrison call Crisman, of all people, such an odd character to just suddenly be like, you know what? My boy's on trial for, killing Kennedy. Let me figure out what I can do. I'll call Crisman, the guy who won't talk about what happened to Dick, and also saw two guys get killed in a UFO incident. Which, how wild is that when you really think about it? I didn't really stop to think about that, but if you're involved in a UFO incident and two people die and then you come back, that's kind of crazy. What happened there? Anyways, back to Crisman. I mean, I guess we never left Crisman, but back to this part of it. Back to Kennedy, I guess you could say. All right. On October 31st, 1960, a grand jury in New Orleans issued a subpoena for Fred Lee Crisman in connection with the investigation into the JFK assassination. Why? District Attorney Jim Garrison issued a press release writing, Mr. Crisman has been engaged in undercover activity for a part of the industrial warfare complex for years. His cover is that of a preacher and a person engaged in work to help gypsies. What? What? What is this guy talking about? This guy's crazy too. What's wrong with you, Jim Garrison? Go back to the Hot Pockets. Anyways, is that of a preacher and a... What? What are you talking about, bro? Anyways, information indicates that since the early 60s has made many trips to New Orleans and Dallas areas in connection with his undercover work for that part of the warfare industry engaged in the manufacture of what is termed in military language hardware, meaning those weapons sold to the U.S. government which are uniquely large and expensive. Mr. Crisman is a former employee of the Boeing Aircraft Company. What? In the sense that one defendant in the case is a former employee of Lockheed Aircraft Company in Los Angeles. What? Oh, okay, yeah. Mr. Crisman is a, quote, former employee of the Boeing Aircraft in the sense that one defendant in the case is, quote, a former employee of Lockheed Aircraft Company in Los Angeles. In intelligence terminology, this ordinarily means that the connection still exists, but that the former employee, quote, has moved into an underground operation. More often than not, a bad record or evidence indicating that he has been fired is prepared for the parent company to increase the dissociation between the two. That same day, Crisman was arrested by Tacoma police for reckless driving. What are you doing, Crisman? Why are you recklessly driving? You're a weird guy. Why you gotta go and did he have a god complex a little bit, you think? Do you think Crisman, I don't know. It seemed like he could have been a liability for the intelligence community if he really was working with them. And I'll be honest with you, why? Why was he such, why are all these guys, so crazy? Why are they always, sporadic and just, endanger themselves on a regular basis for seemingly no reason? Even if they're not dealing with a government job, they're still on their off time doing stuff that's just crazy. Or maybe it all is a part of the government job. Maybe that his reckless driving is just some crazy 4D chess way to work for the government. I don't know. I don't think so. I just think that he was feeling a certain kind of way that day, and he just, after the guy was talking about him like that, and he's like, yeah, let me go for a drive, and then he just got pissed and was like, I'm fucking going crazy with this. Anyways, Crisman, buddy, you gotta chill out. You gotta chill out. On November 21st, 1968, Crisman was deposed in the case against Clay Shaw. By January 9th, 1969, Kennedy assassination conspiracy theorist Richard E. Sprague, either way, famous guy, I'm probably going to talk about him again one day, was privately accusing Crisman of being one of the three tramps. What? We just talked about him, them, it, that whole idea. Okay. So this guy might have been one of the three tramps. What does that mean? Does that mean that he was good with a gun? Was he one of the assassins of, the grassy knoll or whatever? I thought that was the Frenchman. I thought there were like Frenchmen involved in this whole situation. There's always a Frenchman involved. You ever notice that in situations there's always like a specialist Frenchman? That's, I don't know, something worth noting, I guess. It's in a lot of fiction. Look at the boys, Frenchie. There you go. Anyways. Broadcasting and politics. Okay, so this guy had a broadcast, I guess. Starting on August 1st, 1968, Crisman hosted a radio talk show under the pseudonym John Gold on Station K. Crisman authored a pamphlet under his radio name, John Gold, titled What to Do Until Sanity Returns, which he advertised on his show. The work denounced sensitivity training as communist-oriented. Brainwashing Crisman's pamphlet called for the widespread infiltration and disruption of civic organizations like parent-teacher associations. Huh? Okay. Interesting. You must take a page from the Communist Manifesto, he says. You must learn to halt the elections at PTA units. Do not stop with school organizations. Infiltrate each garden club, suborn its social policy, and convert it to an agit-prop group. I'm not sure what that is, but I'm sure that's something not good. Refers to an intentionally vigorous promulgation of ideas. I mean, it's not a bad thing, but it can be a bad thing, I guess. Because the term originated in the Soviet Union where it referred to popular media, such as literature. So what? Propaganda, then. So that's what that is. Why didn't they just say propaganda, then? Anyways, in January 1969, Crisman was sued for libel, along with the other K personalities by a city official who had been accused of being a communist. The case was dismissed. Those damn commies again. Can't escape from them. Crisman authored a book, The Murder of a City, Tacoma, published in 1970 through Transistor Publishing Company. The book was described by reviewer Michael Sullivan as a weird, politically slanted rant that manages to tie corruption in Tacoma to everything from communist infiltrators to the Kennedy assassination. What? Lots going on in Tacoma, I guess. In November 1970, Kay was the subject of hearings by the FCC amid complaints that station violated the fairness doctrine. Crisman's behavior was the subject of extensive discussion, with one witness arguing his playing of Nazi war songs had jeopardized the station's license. Citizens opposed to Kay discussed the station's promotion of the anti-Semitic conspiracy theories and presented transcripts of Crisman making anti-black comments. This guy's really turning into a bit of an asshole, huh? At first I was like, oh, leave this guy alone. But no, fuck him. He's really turning into an asshole. Might have helped kill Kennedy, saying all this racist shit. Anyways. Well, sorry if I say anyways too much, but I guess that's my way of, converting to the next line. In which reference disposed of, Crisman resigned from K. 2 subpoenas were issued for Crisman to appear before the hearings, but he disappeared and could not be located. Wow. Okay. There you go. Supposedly this guy, I'm not going to I guess spoiler alert, because this next part is, after this is called Final Years. But what are the chances that this guy faked his own death? I mean, he was getting up there in age, but, what are the chances that he just took off? He's disappeared before. you know, what are the chances that he doesn't just like, just keep doing it? In 1970, Crisman was appointed to, I mean, probably somebody probably took him out, right? That's probably where this is headed, because I don't know. It just seems like he was kind of a wild guy. Anyways, in 1970, Crisman was appointed to the library board despite objections about his false claims of having held a doctorate. Crisman was elected vice president of the Tacoma Library Board. Crisman was named as a possible investor in Tacoma Cable Television. Local news discussed whether a gun had been allowed inside K. Okay. That's a lot of weird information again. Beginning in 1970, a photocopied document called the Torbit Document, or Nomenclature of an Assassination, circulated among Kennedy assassination buffs, claimed that Crisman was one of the 3 tramps, allegedly employed by a secret government agency. The document incorrectly names him Crimson, or Crisman. Crisman! Crisman! With an O? Okay. Just for reference, it's spelled with an H and an O instead of no H and an A. He falsely claims he was a Syrian. Oh, that's why. He claims him as a Syrian immigrant. In 1971, Crisman, as we're calling him now, Crisman, ran unsuccessfully for a seat on the Civil Service Board. What? What are you doing, dude? Why are you running for this position of power after all this crazy shit comes out about you? In 1973, Crisman resigned from Tacoma Library Board of Directors. Guess he got that. Crisman unsuccessfully ran for a seat on the Tacoma City Council in September 1974. Why would they elect you, Crisman? Come on. Crisman! Chris, come on. Anyways, it's besides the point. Crisman was hospitalized for, kidney failure. Oh, sucks. April 12, 1975, Crisman married Mary Frances Borden. Wait, he was hospitalized for kidney failure and then he marries her? Man, I guess you want to do it. That's like his Make-A-Wish kind of thing right there, right? He wanted to marry Mary Frances Borden. Little side there is, I wonder if she's related to the Borden, famous Borden family. Lizzie Borden and all that. Who knows? Who knows? In April 1975, True Magazine published a photo of Crisman, speculating that he was one of the 3 hobos of JFK conspiracy lore. The November 75 issue of Crawdaddy magazine repeated this claim and further claimed without evidence that Olympia police suspected Crisman of narcotics activity in connection with a group called Servants of Awareness. Is this the secret society that Crisman was trying to start, the Servants of Awareness? What are they aware of? Heroin? Narcotics activity? What are we doing here, Crisman? Crisman died on December 10th, 1975. At his death, it was noted that Crisman was a graduate of Willamette University with degrees in political science, history, and education, and psychology. His legacy. Do we care about his legacy at all, everybody? Let's skim through this real quick. From 76 to 85, Sprague, taking of 123, named Crisman as a grassy knoll shooter. Okay. In 79, the House Select Committee on Assassination reported that forensics anthropologists had analyzed and compared the photographs of 3 tramps with those of Crisman, as well as photographs of Watergate figures E. Howard Hunt, Sturgis, and 2 other men. According to the committee, only Crisman resembled any of the tramps. Yeah, I didn't think Frank Sturgis looked like that guy in the middle. I thought that guy in the middle looked like kind of like a dork, and Frank Sturgis looked like a regular guy. Not that regular people can't look like dorks, but I mean that in a basic ass like regular guy way. He looked like just a regular dude. The guy in the middle just looked like this skinny dorky dude. I don't know how to describe it, but that's what it looks like. Maybe one day I'll get to the point where I'll be able to edit in, the photos that you see. So Maybe you can see what I mean when I say that he was a dorky dude, but I don't know. That's how I would describe it. Anyways, two other men, according to the committee, only Crisman resembled. Sucks for Crisman. But the same committee determined that he was not in Dealey Plaza on the day of the assassination. Where was he then? Where was this guy on the day of the assassination? What did he say that he? Where did he say he was? Where was it reported if they figured out that he wasn't there? Where was he? A document called the Easy Papers was circulated for decades among conspiracy researchers. The document, bearing the date September 13, 1969, purported to be a record of Crisman's time as an OSS and later CIA agent. That sounds cool. That sounds like a really, like, something to, like, I don't know, to read. In 1997, influential conspiracy author Jim Marrs, famous Jim Marrs, cited the document as proof that Crisman had been a member of the OSS during World War II. Marrs was criticized for lying on untrustworthy document. In 1999, conspiracy author Ken Thomas's book on the Maury Island incident. I've heard of Ken Thomas. I don't recognize that. Incident carried the subtitle Crisman Conspiracy. Crisman. Figure Michael claims he knew Crisman since Rhea Schneider was a child. Okay. Apparently, there's an animated comedy called Fred Crisman, Cave of the Space Nazis, from 2022. I would like to watch that, if I'm being completely honest. I'm probably going to, try to find that. Reception. Promotional material described the film emerging after a group of talented folks asked the question, why hasn't Fred Crisman had a movie yet? I guess, was wondering the same thing throughout this. I'll be honest with you, I would have never thought, hey, let's make a Fred Crisman movie. But you know what? If they did it, they did it. That's pretty cool. I'm interested. Let's see what we got here. All right, so I was in the middle of Frank Sturgis. Where am I with that? Sturgis makes his own allegations. He stated the investigation revealed 10 weeks. So this is, I guess, the part 2 of, the Frank Sturgis of it all. I'll be honest with you. I'm probably not going to get to the entirety of the Operation 40, but I'll give you like a cliff notes at the end, and maybe one day I will get to the other members of Operation 40 after this, because Crisman really took up a lot of my time, and Sturgis is a long to deal with character. Anyways, he stated his investigation revealed 10 weeks prior to the assassination, Jack Ruby met with Fidel Castro in Havana, Cuba, to discuss the removal of the president in order to neutralize the threat of invasion by the United States. According to Sturgis, others in the meeting included Raul Castro, Che Guevara, Ramiro Valdez, and an Argentine woman who was believed to have been a Russian KGB agent. Interesting. He said that Ruby had also made several trips to Havana in months before the assassination in order to arrange deals in which arms would be sold to Cuba and in which illegal drugs from Cuba would be smuggled into the United States. Sturgis also claimed that Lee Harvey Oswald was involved in the conspiracy and that other governments either were involved in the conspiracy or knew of the conspiracy. Of course. Why not? I mean, Cuba, right? He said that this investigation did not reveal that Cuban exiles were involved in the assassination. Well, that would implicate themselves, wouldn't it? Wouldn't that implicate the Operation 40 guys if they said that it was, Cuban exiles were involved? Anyways, Sturgis declined to specifically identify the source of information, but noted he said that they included members of the anti-Castro Cuban underground. Well, that's okay. That's a little on the nose there for you to say that, dude. Anyways, he further claimed the associates of his involved in the intelligence and independently confirmed his report. According to Sturgis, his report was made in early 1964 and that it was given to certain American intelligence agencies, including the Senate. And imagine if this is the files that leak out that we find now is Frank Sturgis' story, and they're like, yep, that's what happened. Frank Sturgis is the guy who tells you what happened. I mean, it would be funny, but it would also be kind of sad because it would just be probably all bullshit. But I don't know. It would be interesting to read what his version of the Kennedy assassination was. He's an interesting guy. It would be an interesting read. 1964 reports had been provided to the Rockefeller Commission as well as the Church Committee's intelligence. The subcommittee chaired by Richard Schweiker did not know they received the actual reports. Sturgis slated he was revealing that he made reports in order to refute the leftist element in the country, who claimed the CIA was involved in the assassination of Kennedy. What? Jack Ruby's brother, Earl, responded to the allegations as outlandish, ridiculous, and absolutely false. Well, yeah, obviously. In a 1977 television interview conducted by Bill O'Reilly, excuse me, I apologize. It's getting kind of late. Bill O'Reilly. Why is Bill O'Reilly popping up in this? Sturgis indicated that Alexander Butterfield had notable associations with CIA officials, associating himself with the position taken key by L. Fletcher Prouty, who had made headlines nationwide with his allegation of Butterfield. All right. Anyways. Marita Lorenz. So I'll just say a few things. Sturgis was arrested in Marita Lorenz's apartment once because she threatened to kill him. Crazy shit like that. Marita Lorenz was Fidel's girlfriend, obviously. At one point, she was gonna kill him, and what ended up happening was she told him that the drink that he was going to drink was poisoned. And I guess apparently he already knew that, but that's what he says, at least. Who knows? It's Fidel Castro we're talking about here. Anyways, a little bit of tidbits about her. Castro's girlfriend. They also were still together even after she tried poisoning for the CIA. He was cool with it. I don't know. A little bit of other things to get into, which, like I said, I'm just going to wrap it up for a little bit with the JFK part of it. I'll probably get into the Iran-Contra situation in another episode, and I'll relate back to the Frank Sturgis of it all. But basically, posthumous allegations, Hunt's deathbed confession. So I'll just throw this at you as one of the last things. After the death of Hunt in 2007, John Hunt and David Hunt revealed that their father had recorded several claims about himself and others being involved in a conspiracy to assassinate JFK. In April 5, 2007 issue of Rolling Stone, John Hunt detailed a number of individuals implicated by his father, including Sturgis, as well as Cord Meyer, David Sanchez Morales, David Ali Phillips, William Harvey, and an assassin he termed the French gunman on the grassy knoll. There's the French guy again, who many presume was Lucien Sarti. The two sons alleged that their father cut the information from his memoirs, American Spy, My History in the CIA, Watergate, and Beyond, to avoid possible perjury charges. According to Hunt's widow and other children, the two sons took advantage of Hunt's loss of lucidity by coaching and exploiting him for financial gain. It sounds to me like the kids just knew what was going on and really wanted to know what was going on. The Los Angeles Times said they examined the materials offered by the sons to support the story and found them to be inconclusive. All right. Inconclusive. Time to wrap it up. Like I said, you can tell I'm getting kind of tired. I think this was a good first episode. It was really long, and maybe it'll be a lot shorter in other times, but I really liked discussing Frank Sturgis and our boy Crisman, and all the weird things going on. I might make another episode tomorrow. I might just keep making episodes whenever I feel like it and not have like a set schedule. I like the idea of doing it when I feel like doing it and just going for it and keeping up with it. But anyways, I hope I hope everything is interesting that you heard today. And maybe next time we'll go over more paranormal stuff. I feel like that. I feel like Crisman wasn't paranormal enough. He was good. He talked about, early on it was more paranormal, and then it turned into JFK stuff, and then, I want more paranormal interests and characters. Like we can find them. They're out there. Like I said, there's a little area 1946 to 1955 that I'm sure that we could find like a lot of interesting stories about the government and paranormal activity or UFOs or anything like that. And we shall. This was As the World Burns. I am your host, signing off, I guess would be the word. And I hope you all found this interesting. I will try to provide timestamps. I mean, obviously, if you listen to this, then maybe you listen to the whole thing, or you skip to a certain part at the end or something, or you just skip to the end to see what I'm saying. But I will try to put timestamps into this. I don't even know when I'm going to put this out. When I would put this out, I might put this out tonight. Within, I don't even know, the next hour or two after I record this, or maybe I might just sit on this for a minute. I might record something else. Who knows? But goodbye, and this has been As the World Burns.